Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new live stream. Tonight we're going to be covering the election results out of several major primaries across the country. Tonight we have South Dakota, we have Iowa, we have California. We have plenty of primaries that are currently being litigated as we speak. So we're about to find out what's going to happen. We have some results, very preliminary results here. But nevertheless, hit that like button, subscribe. We're going to get going. We've got a lot of people already here. That's good. We'll have a lot more people coming along as the night goes on. But make sure you guys like and subscribe. We also have officially a new camera. So that's good. So hopefully everything goes well. It should go well tonight. There's really no major concerns that I have for it not to go well. But make sure you guys like the stream, subscribe to the channel if you are new as well as we kind of go throughout the stream here. So definitely still getting everything worked out 100%. Nevertheless, that's just the way it goes. New camera, new live stream. We're back officially. It's been a long time. It truly has been a long time. So we do have that. So make sure you guys like and make sure you guys do subscribe. Just trying to make sure everything is sorted. Everything is sorted out here. So it should look fine, but it's still a little bit off from what I'm seeing now, because for some reason the old camera had the ability to like autofocus. I don't know if this one really does, but hopefully it goes, you guys can see it well enough. Regardless, should be at least good to see me and also see the election results on the screen as they do happen. So South Dakota, you have results in. Again, 35% is the runoff threshold in South Dakota, and currently it's anybody's game. It's literally anybody's game. We're waiting. We're about to find out what's going to happen. We don't have anything out of Sioux Falls, anything out of the major cities. Also, Mike Rounds, he's facing some no-name. He's only getting 75% of the vote, which, a lot more votes just dropped across the state. They're at 4% now. So we'll see what happens there. But New Jersey's kind of like, okay, wait a minute. We saw something huge. Something big. Larry Roden jumping up in South Dakota. Interesting. But Iowa is definitely where a lot of eyes are on, because you have Zach Lon, who is not endorsed by Trump, but was surging in the betting odds at the last minute. Nobody knew what exactly was happening with Zach Lon. Well, apparently it turns out that, as you see here, he's doing well in Des Moines. But there's a lot of Feenstra's district that's not in. Feenstra still very likely the favorite to win this race because he's doing very well in the rural counties. And again, these are won with the rural counties in Iowa. Like, even when it came down to Obama and his wins, he won a lot of rural counties in Iowa. If you cannot win the rural counties in Iowa, you're not winning Iowa. And that's the problem Democrats have in the state. So for a Republican primary in particular, if Lon's only doing well in the Des Moines area, it doesn't really seem as if he's going to be able to run it up, and especially because a lot of that's like early vote, so election day vote after Donald Trump made his endorsement of Randy Feenstra probably would be enough to even push Feenstra over the top in some of the places where he may be in a little bit of a second place finish in, like Dallas County. I probably would expect Feenstra to win that at the end of the day. We'll still see. So California is going to come in about 90 minutes. We're not going to stream the entirety of California because I would have to be live streaming for about 3 months to get all the results in. They'd be early voting by the time you don't even have full results. Not actually, but it wouldn't be far off from that. So again, if you guys want to send in any super chats, feel free as we kind of navigate the stream. Hopefully the camera is going to hold up. Just trying to make sure, because I think that the, okay, there we go. We have the green screen has to match. So I think it... Okay, wait, that's not going to work. I'm like invisible. But some of the like background smoothness is not 100% here. So we want to kind of limit some of the spill. That should be much better, actually. Well, no, not quite. Okay. This might take a minute. But we do want to make sure that there's not a lot of spill. This should be probably ideal because we don't want it to be too fuzzy to the point where you can't see me. But I think this is probably ideal for what we have. If that makes sense. All right, that should be better. Okay. Now it looks good to me. So let's see here. Nothing new out of Iowa. We're going to go back to South Dakota, where, again, 6% of the vote, not a lot of vote, is in. And, again, anybody's game in terms of who gets second place. If Hansen has a big performance in the major metros, which a lot of people are expecting him to, whether it's on the ground or not, there's a chance that he could shoot up because Dusty's down there at 26.5%. So it's still very much anybody's game when it comes down to it at all. Definitely the betting odds are moving a little bit back and forth as we speak, as everybody's kind of putting their shares in. Feenstra dropped a lot. We got a lot riding on Feenstra because we understand that's a market that was really hot where a lot of people at the last minute were going against Feenstra. But if Feenstra's worst county's all the way in, and he's only down by 9, I think Feenstra's going to run away with it when the remainder of the votes are tallied. He's doing very well in Sioux City, which is preliminary. It's where his district is, but also before that Donald Trump endorsement, which likely is going to help him out quite a bit. So we're not completely done yet gauging the results there. But there you have it for Iowa. New Jersey's a mess. That Senate race is a clusterfuck. The South Dakota governorship is also a clusterfuck, but we'll see. Hopefully Dusty Johnson gets frozen out of the runoff. I'd like a Hansen-Doden runoff, honestly. I mean, those are two of the candidates that you would like to see finish, two of the more strong America First style candidates. I think Hansen's going to be able to get more done, though, because he leads the state house, so he kind of has the connections to do it, whereas Doden, yeah, he's an outsider, but again, when it comes to state government, knowing the ins and outs, if the outsider agrees with the insider on everything, I'm pretty sure the insider is going to be the better option. But regardless, anyone's better than Dusty Johnson. Larry Roden, nobody even knows who the hell the guy is. They don't know who the guy is in South Dakota. They have no idea. But that's what's going on there. So Montana, nothing yet. I believe the polls close in 34 minutes in Montana. California is definitely going to be a big one, but the polls there close in about 95 minutes. So we don't have anything there. We're kind of waiting on what we're going to see out of the state of Iowa. Because this is one where Zach Lon's in the lead, but again, he's not going to win given what's outstanding and given Randy Feenstra's strength in the rural counties. Again, he outspent Feenstra. So again, this is also a test of guy with money, guy who runs a campaign that has some online support, even some MAGA support, against just the test of Trump's endorsement. And it seems like Trump's endorsement might be what reigns supreme here, because it's not like Adam Steen is going anywhere. He might be the more establishment candidate. He was endorsed by the Bob Vanderplatz guy that everybody in Iowa understands is kind of like this pastor who sides with the GOP establishment, endorsed Ted Cruz in 2016, endorsed Ron DeSantis in 2024 over Donald Trump, saying he would prefer somebody else, attack Trump's immigration policy, and that's who's behind Adam Steen. So we'll see. But even where that part of the state is, you don't really see a big performance for him. So we're waiting. 14% of the votes are in. Randy Feenstra, he's going to clean up in the rest of the state. That's the thing. That's what people are not quite anticipating, the people that in the betting markets decided to side against him. So let's see here. Hansen up big in Lincoln County. And again, there's a lot of votes in the Sioux Falls area. This is precisely where, if Hansen's going to win, if Hansen's going to pull off the upset, which again, I knew he was undervalued, but if he's going to pull off this upset, it's going to come from that region. It's going to come from that part of the state. It's going to come from Sioux Falls. Because if Doden wins Sioux Falls, then I think it might be over for Hansen. But Hansen's doing very well in Lincoln County. I know it's only 7% of the vote in, but this is where he tends to do well. If Hansen wins in Sioux Falls, and I've heard he might, that could be good news for Hansen. So that's important to note. Now, we'll go back and forth between Iowa. We'll go back and forth between Iowa and South Dakota. There's nothing new out of Iowa, though. But we could check. And Marionette Miller Meeks is currently in a very solid shape over David Pouch. As it stands right now, he almost won last time. But again, what counties are in? You only have now you have 3 counties in. Oh, that's the Democrat side. But it does seem as if Marionette Miller Meeks, if she's running stronger this time, maybe it's a more positive sign for the general election. Some people might say that could be a cope of sorts. I don't know. But either way, it does seem as if that particular district is more receptive to her, if that makes sense. It's more receptive to her than it was before. So I don't know if that's because of anything that's happened over the past 2 years, or if Pouch just didn't run as strong of a campaign this time. Regardless, one thing we know, that Marionette Miller Meeks probably is going to be renominated. But this is really shaping up to be interesting in the South Dakota race, because there's a lot we don't fully know, and there's a lot of strongholds like Rapid City area, Sioux Falls that have not yet reported. That's 8% of the vote, and it's anybody's game. If nobody gets 35, it's going to a runoff. The question is it Doden Johnson, Doden Roden, Doden Hansen, Johnson Roden? We don't know. We honestly don't know. Doden spent a lot of money, so we'll see if that pays off for him. But it's way too early to tell. It's way too early to call. Trump has not endorsed anybody, as somebody in chat was questioning. Trump didn't make an endorsement in South Dakota, but I presume that whoever Trump endorses is not going to end up being Dusty Johnson, because Trump and Dusty Johnson have kind of had this Cold War for a while with each other, because Johnson has, he hasn't joined the Liz Cheneys of the world overtly, but in South Dakota, for somebody that is supposed to represent Trump's agenda, he was bending over backwards for Joe Biden. His entire presidency, Dusty Johnson was not siding. And we tried to primary him out last time, in 2022, actually. We didn't really have that materialize. So MW Patriot says, are you worried about Rob Sand in November? Absolutely. Now, it's the Iowa governorship. This is not like it matters. If we trade Iowa for Kansas, and it does matter to Iowa, but if you trade Iowa's governorship for Kansas's governorship, it's not the end of the world in reality. It's a very elastic state. The Democrats that have run their campaigns, Rob Sand's been out there fighting fraud. That's what he's running his campaign on. I think he's a fraud, to be honest, but it sells well. It sells well, and I think Iowa, as of right now, I'd say he's the favorite even. Now, it doesn't mean he will win, but I've seen nothing that would point to the evidence of him not being the favorite, because Iowa's economy is kind of not in the best shape right now, and it's not that people are blaming Trump so much as people are blaming Reynolds, which is why she's the least popular governor in the entire country, along with Dan McKee and a few others. So there's a lot to look into there, for sure. But in terms of South Dakota, let's go back to South Dakota. More votes are in, and the result hasn't changed much. So it's a very tight race. It's a very tight race. The question is, can Hansen get in those top two? Because Larry Roden's an incumbent. Nobody knows who the hell the guy is. If we're going to be completely honest with each other, nobody knows Larry Roden in South Dakota. It's funny because he's many people's second favorite option from what I've heard, but he's not anyone's first option. And the fact he's an incumbent governor right now, who's currently sitting below 25% of the vote, that's unheard of for an incumbent governor. Now, he's doing fairly well in the middle part of the state, but there's so many votes that have not yet been tabulated to the point where I wouldn't even look into it at all. The question is what happens in Sioux Falls, what happens in Rapid City, what happens in Aberdeen, the parts of South Dakota that actually have people. You know, some of these other places, it's like 32% of the vote is in. It's 150 people. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what's happening. But it's going down the wire. So we'll let's see. We will continue to monitor the results as they come in, but we'll go back to Iowa. And Feenstra's gained on Lon a little bit. And we could check the betting markets, which I don't have them pulled up on screen, but I do have them here. And Feenstra's at 79% as it stands now. David Pouch went up to 8%. Did more votes come in? Well, he's actually losing ground, so I don't know how that would make sense. But either way, you look at Iowa, Feenstra is neck and neck with Lon. He's going to pass him. And again, people need to just understand the rural counties that have yet to come in, many of whom are in Feenstra's district, he's winning in. Like, he's at 48%. I don't think he's just going to win. I think he'll run away with it. Like, we're talking about a 10-point win to even possibly a 15-point win. Because if Lon, the best he can do is just Polk County, maybe Johnson County, which doesn't have a lot of Republican voters. Nikki Haley won that county, for those who don't remember. And Trump fired the guy that ran his campaign in that county. For those who remember the 2024 election primary lore, not a lot of people do, but that was definitely a big deal back then. We're talking 2 years ago. A lot can change. But we're watching the results. Ashley Hinson running it up big in Iowa. But that governor's primary, again, Feenstra, the rural areas don't always matter depending on which state you're in. But when so much of your state is rural, like it is in the state of Iowa, and your candidate Feenstra is winning them, which again, not the highest turnout overall, but the later votes benefiting Feenstra likely mean that he's going to do better. He's going to be bailed out, per se, because he did have that Trump endorsement. Rob Sand is uncontested on the Democrat side, so we'll see. But let's see. How many people? 1,600 live viewers we have. Make sure you guys like the stream. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel as well. But send in super chat so we can keep the conversation going. I don't know what happened to the goal button. It's missing for some reason. I guess YouTube decided to either remove it or it's deciding not to show it. Either way, it's not gonna engage the audience. So you guys have to engage a little bit more on your own, which is fine. But we have New Mexico, nothing new. That Republican primary is all over the place. I don't even want to break this down. I don't know anything about any of these people, to be honest, because this is going to be a race the Democrats are just going to run away with. And they've nominated their star candidate, who is the former Interior Secretary who has all the connections, and the Republican Party is non-existent in the state of New Mexico. We've been over this. They put up the weatherman multiple times. He lost by 5 to 6 points multiple times. That's just how it goes. So now we just play the waiting game for Iowa, for all these results to pour in. Shout out to Red Whale 18. Red Whale 18 with the super chat. Thank you. I appreciate it. We have several more. Roku Fan 1835 says, thoughts on the Henry Nowak stabbing in England. I've heard a little bit about it, and I don't really understand why the countries that we hear so much about, whether it's France, whether it's the UK, Germany, they continue to commit suicide. They continue to open their borders to people that have zero in common, first of all, with these people. They're in many cases incapable of upholding the same ideals that made the West in the first place. Many of them are not even Christian. Most of them are not. And then they do things like this. This is the problem that we have with mass migration. And so many useless morons co-sign onto this Marxist idea that all people and all cultures are just transferable and we're all the same. We're not the same. That's the harsh truth. We're not. There's reasons why certain things exist in certain countries, in certain cities, even within certain countries, but not in others. And whether it's cultural, whether it's whatever, it's not the point. The point is you can't be stupid. You can't be so much of an individualist that you allow your country to be taken over by radical collectivists for them that have absolutely nothing in common with you. That's the problem. We see it all over. We see it in the United States. We see it in major metro areas here. We see it in Dallas. We see it with the H-1B visas and the so-called merit-based immigration. Sure, they commit less crime, but they have nothing in common with you. They want to rob this country. They want to cheat this country. They want to rob it of our resources. 90% of jobs since pre-COVID have gone to foreign-born individuals. That is ridiculous. It needs to stop now. People need to understand that. And it's not getting us anywhere. It's sending us directly to hell. That's the problem. So, yeah, it is a total disgrace. Tactical Charlie Fortu says, just woke up in Iowa, wanted to vote for, well, that's unfortunate, but she's going to win anyways. But we need people voting. MW Patriot for 5 says, if Sand wins, which is looking like a real possibility, it could lead to bad down ballot effects. Like, well, we're going to win the Senate. We'll win at least 2 of the House races. I don't have a lot of hope for the rest of them. We may not need them, to be honest. It'd be good to have 1 or 2 of them, but let's see. Red Whale 18 for 10 says, Trump before the 2028 election needs to clean house in the Senate. People like Thune, Young, Murkowski, Langford, Rand Paul, etc., and make Tom Cotton Senate Majority Leader. Well, I don't know how that would work out. I don't even know if Cotton's that good. But you're right. 2028, Trump can go scorched earth because he doesn't need these people. They'll view him as a lame duck anyways. They're not going to co-sign with his agenda anyways. Primary them out. What the hell do you have to lose? Primary these people out. Take it from here. And right now we have a lot of votes that have not yet reported. So what counties are all the way in or mostly in? Minor County is one of them, which Doden won, but again, Hanson's in a close second. Jones is another one where Larry Roden actually did extraordinarily well. Sanborn County is another one, which is a very light county. Hanson's in second. McCook County, Doden by 9. Dusty in second. Hanson in a very close third. I'm telling you, it's going to come down to Sioux Falls. It's going to come down to Rapid City. And we'll see what happens. Because you're talking about 700 votes that separate the second place finisher from the fourth place finisher. And for all the people that said it's going to be a slam dunk for Doden or a slam dunk for Johnson, he's going to get 35, they said, yeah, I don't really see it. Now, I don't really have too much of a dog in the fight. I would rank, if ranked choice voting was a thing, I would go Hansen, Doden, Roden, Johnson. Johnson wouldn't even get ranked. He'd be left off. But we'll see. And nothing's really changed. Zach Lon's actually putting up a bit of a fight in some of these rural counties now, which is a little interesting. So we'll see. Would I make my screen smaller and the election screen larger? I try to keep it in a way where people can see it. Now, can you guys see the percentages? I assume if you're on a computer, you can. If you're on your phone, might be a bit tougher. We could maybe see, the thing is, if we blow it up a bit more like this, maybe you see the percentages more, but you see the map a bit less. Or maybe this is the compromise. So we'll try. Let's go back to New Jersey. And this, again, these coalitions are insane. This is anybody's game. It doesn't even make sense. Because it's not even like a suburban, rural thing. It's just like all over the place. You get a few races like this. As we wait more to come in South Dakota. And Iowa, by the way. But Ashley Hinson is really doing well. But one thing I noticed was Zach Lon's supporters were very, very online. But he also raised a lot of money. So we'll see if that's enough to carry him. I know that he's doing better as more of like Dallas counties come in, and he won a couple counties. But he still actually lost ground on Randy Feenstra. And if this is early vote, Feenstra is going to clean up a little bit later on, depending on what happens up here. Now, this is Feenstra's district up here. He's winning it big. This, not so much. We don't have anything really in well, I guess he's up in Dubuque. But the Davenport area, Scott County, that's a swing county. It's funny because Trump Trump lost it in 2020 when he won by 8. But Rob Sand, even though he won in 2022, he actually lost Davenport. So it's trended that much to the right. Trump won it big in 2024. But this is a primary. We'll see what happens. But Johnson County actually coming in for Feenstra. So Lon's not really getting bailed out there. Plus, it's not that many votes. Not like we're seeing too many votes tonight, period. The Democrats have already, they're on track to have like 200,000 votes. Republicans about the same. Which again, primaries are primaries. Primaries usually benefit more credentialed voters, which have been backing Democrats in Iowa. But there's been a big movement in the betting markets here. Feenstra, I don't know if it was a big buy, but Feenstra down at 27 cents. Now he's climbing back up. But a big shift in the markets there. Zach Lon wins some of these rural counties very narrowly. But there's a lot left that I think Feenstra is going to benefit off of. So we'll see. South Dakota, Rapid City, a little bit of that is in Larry Roden actually leading in Rapid City, but nothing out of Sioux Falls, which is the largest county. Again, this is 19% of the vote in Pennington County. Meade County also is some of the Rapid City area, the northern parts in it as well. And still looks like we're headed to a runoff, but Dusty Johnson might get frozen out. Spring 91 Bear says, what names do you have for Dusty Johnson? Well, I'll tell you this. Go into a thesaurus. Ask AI. You can do that now. You couldn't do that back in 2022. Ask for similar or synonyms for dirty or dusty and synonyms for penis. And you get all sorts of names that you can apply to Dusty Johnson. There's too many of them. I'm not going to name them all because, we probably would like to stay monetized, and we could go on, and it could devolve into very amateur humor. But we're not gonna name all of them. But you guys can do that and find out plenty of things like unclean penis or dirty phallus or dirty dick, I think was the common one. There's plenty of nicknames you could throw at the guy because, again, the guy's name is Dusty Johnson. Like, I don't know, because he's been there so long that if the time he was elected, I don't know if that would have even been on voters' minds. But, like, right now, it's like with the meme culture, the internet, it's kind of gone under the radar a bit. But John Waffles, his thoughts on South African white refugees to the U.S. It's better than whatever we were taking before because you have people that, again, the average age of like a farmer is like 62. So you have these people, they're fleeing genuine persecution. They already have values because of that are more right-leaning. Elon Musk is one of them, by the way, if you want to think about it that way. He's not a farmer, but he is a white South African who established himself in the United States. So, again, I would say that compared to taking in 70-some thousand refugees from Afghanistan and all across the globe, taking them in from, people that are fleeing anti-white persecution in South Africa is a big turnaround. And you're also taking in far less than what you were taking in before. So it's funny because now you have Democrats that are writing articles about, these people are taking jobs away. And it's like, where have you been for the past 60 years? Now you care because they're white and South African and probably would vote Republican if they became citizens. That's the only reason why these people give a damn about quote unquote displacement, which they're not even displacing people because, like I said, the average age of a farmer is in the 60s. These people are retiring in many places. They're not having enough kids to take them on, which sucks. But it's like you'd rather probably have whoever takes over for them be somebody who at least is culturally compatible with the United States, wants to be here, kisses the ground they walk on, doesn't look down on Americans or, commit a relatively high level of violent crime against Americans. So that's the difference between the migration that you see there with a lot of the migration that you would see from other places, from places like the Middle East, Africa, Latin America, which is honestly at a point where we didn't maybe realize how good we had it with Latin America, given just small numbers of these other people actually being what wakes people up. So, interesting. But let's see here. We don't have any more super chats. Guys, feel free to send in super chats. Feel free to like the stream, subscribe as we cover these results. And Randy Feenstra is right behind Zach Lon. Zach Lon is there. He leads by 500 votes. Feenstra is closing the gap. And he shot up 10% on Kalshi. That is 10%. So let's see. South Dakota. Let's see here. Nothing new. No Sioux Falls. We'll go back to Iowa. And once again, it is 400 votes that separate these two. And Sioux County, Feenstra, that's in his district, he's at 58%. Lon is doing fairly well around the Cedar Rapids area, but it does seem like a lot of his votes are already in. And that's the thing. So Lon's going to need to do very well in the southern part of the state to win. And then you have counties like this, 9% of the vote, but Feenstra's at 64. So Feenstra is in a good place to win right now. as it stands. So the odds have been all over the place, but Trump endorsed Feenstra. That shot his odds up a bit, but then they actually fell to where they were before the endorsement, which actually was interesting. So John Hanson doing well in some of these counties, but he actually fell. Okay, now he goes up a bit. And again, that is just a small amount of votes separating the second place and fourth place challenger. Again, anybody's game. I think you got to feel good if you're Doden for a runoff. That's the thing. So, let's see. Nothing new. Let's go back to Iowa. And it is even closer than it was before, if I'm not mistaken, as more counties come in. Look, Feenstra is winning a lot of these counties, and they're roughly about the same size. So the more they add up, the better it will be for Feenstra. Which, again, you look at the House, Marionette Miller Meek still ahead substantially. You have a competitive primary in the 2nd district. The other districts are not even contested. So let's go back to South Dakota, if we will, as we wait for more votes to come in. And this is still 4 people who are between 25% and 30%. And it's still anybody's game. Now, the western part of the state, Larry Roden's actually doing fairly well. So he's making his case for an unlikely re-election bid if he's able to win a runoff. Though Toby Doden has done well in certain counties here, he's lost a little bit of ground as more votes have come in. So again, I think Sioux Falls might be the determining factor here. We just have yet to see. So Red Whale 18 says, not getting my hopes up on California. Early voting looks solid to the point where some of the House seats might be dummy manders if turnout is through the roof on Election Day. Well, you're not wrong. But again, independents matter. But again, if so many Republicans show up, this was the problem in 2022. Republicans showed up. Some of them didn't like the candidates because they're more like establishment Republicans that showed up, not low prop Republicans. And independents, a lot of them went blue compared to expectations. Now, this time around, independents still probably go blue for different reasons, but the Republicans, I think you're going to get an electorate very similar to 2022. And as a result, I think Republicans have an outside shot to retake, or to not retake, but to hold the House. It's not a guarantee. I'm not going to sit here and claim this, but I also don't believe that this is like going to match up with how people view the current admin, because I don't know if midterms go that way anymore. You could say it's propensity, it's this thing, it's that thing. Who knows? But let's check the state of Iowa. And nothing is really new here, but it's going back and forth. We get the notifications for the betting markets. It's gone back and forth. It is neck and neck. 200 votes separate these guys. But again, all of Des Moines is in. Half of Dallas County is in, which is a high-income suburban county. The rural areas that are anticipated to back Feenstra, a lot of them are outstanding. But again, you still have Zach Lon performing solid in the urban centers. But are there that many of them remaining? Especially when Feenstra's winning in Dubuque, he's winning in Sioux City. Well, he gained a little bit there as more votes dropped. So we'll see. We'll go back to South Dakota. And we still do not have Sioux Falls in. So let's see. We have 4 minutes till polls close in Montana. Iowa still is pouring in. And there's a lot of vote left. We don't know which way this is going to go. Seems like turnout is going to be around 200,000 for each party. Jack It 7 for 2 says, who do I vote for in Maryland? I have not looked into that. I could get back to you on that one. Daniel Krieger for 10 says, hello, Rep. Long time no see. The string of white pills in May this year is something I don't think anyone expected. Hope you're having a blessed day and keep up the good work. Well, we had some victories. We truly did. Now we got to build on that or it's not going to be meaningful. But I appreciate the super chat there. 559 Texans says, good evening, brother. Fan of the show here. What are the odds for Hilton? Well, I think he's going to probably advance. Now, can I promise you he's going to win the general? No, I can't. California's California. It'd be a win if he could break 40. If he could break like 43, that would be an even bigger win. It would show you that Newsom is not really that well viewed in his state. If 43% in a so-called blue year are willing to back a Republican. And I hope that he does as well as possible, because if Republicans have a good showing in California, that's going to benefit them come the general election. So more votes come in, and it is still neck and neck. 420 votes separate Zach Lon and Randy Feenstra. Colin DeVos is Sioux Falls resident here, kind of rooting for Doden. Well, Doden is probably going to at least make a runoff. I don't know who's going to get second. It could determine on how the later vote comes in. It could come down to a lot of things. There's a lot we don't know. But if Lincoln County comes in anywhere where we expect the city of Sioux Falls to come in at, Hansen has a shot. Who, again, a Hansen-Doden runoff would be solid. Because you have the two best candidates advancing to the runoff, and then they can duke it out. And that would be a positive thing. So we'll see. We'll go back to Iowa. And Zach Lon is currently up by 700 votes now. So again, this is anybody's ball game. It just depends. How did these counties come in rural Iowa? How do they come in? How does the later vote come in after Trump endorsed Feenstra? The betting markets have been all over the place, but Feenstra right now, he's only at 52. So, again, there's vote remaining. That is true. But I also can't sit here and say that it's any sort of a guarantee. Now we have more votes in Dusty Johnson actually doing well in the southeastern portion of South Dakota, as 20% of the vote is in. But again, 80% of the vote is not in. So we have a very little sample size here. We don't know what's going on. Daniel Krieger for 10 says, one black pill I worry about is the rhinos have changed from sleazy to hostile after what happened in Indiana, Louisiana, and Texas. Exactly. They're out here now claiming, or you have John Cornyn that's even though he endorsed Ken Paxton, he's still posting an image about the libertarian candidate. Oh, he could gain. It's like, who are these people? They don't want to win. They don't have principles. Because if you have principles, you'd want to win. You'd want to defeat the left. You would want to actually do something good for once. They don't. They're completely bought and paid for. They need to go. That's the problem with the establishment. Now, a lot of them have gone, which is where the hope lies for the Republican Party. You have people that want to burn the entire house down. They're morons. Those people don't need to be listened to in any capacity. But the Republicans that are out there, they constantly just bend over backwards for the Democrats, try to lose. These are the people that are the biggest enemy of all, because they're the reason why this country's in this mess to begin with, and that they need to go. Enough is enough. So we're waiting more results. The original Lassax's Dubuque is pronounced Dubuque. I guess it's Dubuque, not Dubuque. I'm in San Antonio, but finished high school in Davenport. Okay, well, I guess you're the one to trust there. But this is closer than people expected. It also begs the question, if Trump didn't endorse Feenstra, Lon might have been able to run away with this, and it also shows fundraising as an indicator in this primary, in this state of Iowa, for an election like this, which you could make the case could help out Republicans as a whole in the midterms because they do have a big war chest. They're not going to be outspent the way they were outspent in 2022 or even 2024, but it doesn't matter. The Democrats, they're in debt. The DNC is a disaster. They're hoping to capitalize on people being upset about gas prices. And when you think about that, and they're falling a little bit, they need to fall by more, but they're casually dropping just a little bit, just like they did in 2022. And Republicans boxed themselves into the messaging, and it didn't work out for them. So what are Democrats expecting to happen now? That's my question. Are they anticipating that they're going to be bailed out by that? They're going to be bailed out by propensity, which can be mitigated when money is spent. You're not going to have a government shutdown like you would in 2021. But even if you had a 2021, or not 21, 25, but if you had a 2025 electorate, there's no telling that Republicans would do poorly enough to lose a single one of those Senate seats, especially when you factor in the Collins overperformance, the Plattner disaster, all of it. So Hansen's at 21.1. More votes have come in. Dusty Johnson. I would love for Dusty to get fourth place. That's one thing I think everybody can agree on, taking some sort of enjoyment in that fact. If he gets fourth place, that would be something. But I don't know if we're there yet. But Iowa is definitely the race to watch because, again, it's 1,000 votes now. But how are these votes going to come in the later we go? And how many more of these rural counties are going to come in? Again, Feenstra doing very well in his own district, but not so well outside of it. And that could be what determines the outcome here. We have a lot we don't know. Colin DeVos for 5 says, I'm a former Sioux County, Iowa resident. Really hate that Sanda's a good shot. Hopefully Feenstra pulls it off now in November. We'll see. If he's a safe seat congressman and he's not running away with this with the Trump endorsement, it primary to general is not the best indicator, but it does raise a little bit of a concern. It should raise at least a minor concern that something's going on here where he's a bit weaker than expected. He was up in all the polls except one, and that one poll was before the Trump endorsement, and it was a virtual tie. So if Feenstra, as it stands now, is currently losing, even though I think he's going to pull it out, when he should have ran away with this thing, it's a little bit disheartening, I will say. It is, because not only did he have Trump's endorsement, he also had the full establishment behind him too. So if he's going to limp to the general with 37% of the vote, then I don't think he's going to win, because I haven't seen anything from him that shows that he has the ability to. And I want him to win. I'm not going to lie to my audience and sit here and tell people that he's going to run away with this thing when he's clearly not. But again, you have a candidate who is arguably more MAGA, who's like a big Maha guy, who sits there in first place. And if he wins the nomination, maybe he could bring something else to the table for the general, where he could rail against the establishment of both parties, so long as he doesn't fully engage in the retard right, like some other candidates have, that have also done the same thing, but albeit poorly, then maybe Lon's going to be able to stand on 2 feet. But as of right now, Feenstra is not really inspiring a lot of confidence so far, even in his own district, although I think he probably wins. And he gained a little bit in that drop. Again, there's nothing that really is showing a lot of confidence. So not a lot is really in certain parts of South Dakota. We're almost 25% of the vote in, though. But there's a lot of votes remaining. Sioux Falls is 23,000. Pennington County has quite a bit, too. We don't know how those votes are going to go. So we'll be waiting for a while. We'll be waiting for a while for sure, because they count at a snail's pace, and that's not a good thing. So Feenstra, he cuts the lead to about 760 votes, and now he cuts it to 590 as more votes pour in. So there you have it. 42% of the vote is in. Zach Lon in the lead, but it is, you actually have excitement. This is our first actual election night stream in a long time, and we have a fair amount of excitement taking place in multiple states. So we'll see. It's, again, 3.9% from the South Dakota. We don't have anything in out of Minnehaha County. That is the largest county in the state of South Dakota, where the most votes are. Plenty in Lincoln County as well. And we have nothing yet out of Brown County and Aberdeen. So we'll see. Spring 91 Bears has heard that Shank and Hassan were banned from the UK. Yeah, it's not that like the UK always has been the best when it comes to political speech, but at least they're banning the morons now. So I guess there's a silver lining in that department. And of course they're saying, this is because of Israel. And it's like, no, they banned, I could go through how many very strong, diehard Zionist influencers they've banned as well. They don't talk about that. And it's like, no, they just don't want people in their country causing drama. It's funny. Those are the only two Muslims the UK will ever ban is Shank and Hassan. How bad do you have to be for the UK to say that two Muslims can't enter the country? Seriously, how low does the bar have to go for that to be when they just say, nope, you're not allowed in? I think it's amusing, honestly. But I guess it's a rare win for the UK these days. So Mr. Jimmy 7229 for 5 says thoughts on SCOTUS reinstating Alabama's 6-1 map, and Republicans could be favored in the House if weak Republicans didn't fumble in Indiana, Ohio, and South Carolina. Yeah, can't stand them. This is the problem. They're hurting their electoral chances when they do this. Although I will issue a white pill. Look what happened in Indiana. It was a bloodbath in the primaries because the voters are fed up. They're fed up. That's what happens. They are smart. The Republican electorate is getting a hell of a lot smarter because A, they're rejecting the retard right candidates. They're completely dead in the water. But also, they're rejecting the establishment. They're rejecting the rhinos. They're rejecting the weaklings. And those people are also a problem. And the fact that they're rejecting both should tell you that contrary to anything you hear on X or any source that you hear, the Republican primary electorate is getting a hell of a lot smarter, and they're doing a hell of a good job lately, and they deserve credit for that. Now, as to what's going on here in Iowa, I really can't tell you much about this primary because there's so much we don't know. There's so much that's outstanding. We don't know how Davenport's going to go, or Dubuque is going to go, or however that Super Chatter pronounced the name. He probably knows it a hell of a lot better than I do. But some of these counties in the southern part are like 50-50, neck and neck. Ravino for 5 says, my dad's very conservative Trump supporter, refuses to vote for anyone that's even slightly against Israel. He loves Israel as much as the U.S. Now, I'm not going to say that that's exactly a good thing to, view politics through a lens of, but at the same time, the anti-Israel crowd will forget the fact that those people exist. That you're going to have people who are on the other side of the issue, whether it's for theological reasons, whether you think they're valid or not, it's not really relevant. But they will take the opposite stance that these online complainers take. And there's probably more of them in the real world. So, again, if people want to make their entire political worldview in a Republican primary about opposing the state of Israel, they're going to probably lose. And they probably would be better, if that's their single issue, on the other side, in the Democrat primary. Now, I don't think you should view politics through an Israel-only lens. I think that that's not healthy either. I think that we should not give them special treatment. They are a country. They exist. We exist. We have goals. They have goals. They're not the root of all evil, but they don't need to be put on a pedestal either. And I understand if there's people that have family over there or something like that, or even that have that theological connection. But even if you do, I think it's better for both countries if we follow the Trump approach, where we will stand up to them if we need to, just like we stand up to France, or we stand up to Germany or Japan or Canada when we need to. Israel is a country. They're the only country in the region that you could probably reason with. Some of the Gulf states are kind of there, but I don't trust them as much, obviously. But the rational take should be that we put American interests first. We work with Israel in areas where we agree, and areas where we might not agree, we put our interests first and say no. And that's what Trump does, which is why the Israel lobby, even though they love him when he's president, they also don't really, they never really supported him at the same extent in the primaries. Even though I think you can make the case his approach is far better for Israel than the Mark Levin's sycophantic approach, those type of people. Because, again, when you put Israel on this pedestal and you try to ban all criticism of it, it does create in a vacuum this sort of derangement for Israel. And I'm not saying that, that's the intent of those people's support. Maybe they genuinely care. But, when it comes down to it, you can't let a party who has to solve many issues that none of which have to do with Israel get consumed with the rationality of Israel. And if that party exists, it's on the other side. Go to the left. The left elected an anti-Israel lunatic who's far left in New Jersey with 83% of the primary vote. It's to a point where AIPAC didn't even invest in that race because they knew it was futile. And for all the people that say, well, AIPAC's in our primaries, there are instances where they are, but they still lose. So it's not the be-all, the be-all and end-all of a primary is who supports Israel. I believe that Israel and AIPAC gave money to Randy Feenstra, even though he actually was outspent, and now he's losing. Because guess what? AIPAC does not fully control American politics the way that a lot of people think it does. Doesn't mean they don't have influence. It just means that there's not this unilateral control the way that some people make there out to be because it's edgy or because it's trendy or whatever. And then, of course, you have people that freak out at hearing that because it blows up their worldview, although it's far and few between in the real world. And you'll see that when we get to the Florida primary. And Randy Feenstra is running it up now in Clinton County. But again, some of these other counties have come in for Lon. So this is tight. This is close. But nothing in Sioux Falls. But Hanson's winning some more rural counties in the middle of the state. It's going to be close in both. California, nothing yet. We got to wait till the hour's over. Montana, Kurt Alme is going to be the next senator. Probably. We'll see. It's funny because the Democrats are going to be on the ballot, but they are running an independent, and it's like free money on Kalshi. Free money for the Republicans. But it's going down the wire in Iowa, I will say. But Zach Lano, he's picked up steam because more of Cedar Rapids is coming, but he lost ground in Cedar Rapids. I think it's important to note that he lost ground. So it's neck and neck. I wonder what the odds say now for these markets. Let's check. And Feimster's down to 15. Oh, man, that is brutal. That is brutal. But it's not over. He might be the first Trump endorsement to lose a primary. But keep in mind, Trump endorsed him right before the poll that had him losing was dropped. I don't know if Trump stands by that decision, because there was one poll before that had Feimster up big. Not a lot of people knew Zach Lon, but 50% of the vote is in. Now, I'm not saying he's going to win. We don't know what happens in Davenport. We don't know what happens in the remainder of his own district, which it seems like Feimster is probably going to end up winning these counties. But what's going to happen in this part of the state? I mean, if the southern part, the southwestern part comes in strong, there's a lot we don't know. Half the vote is in, but Feimster's going to need to do a little bit better than what he's been doing. Obviously, the hydrogen bomb for Lon is already done in Des Moines. Dallas County's mostly in. We don't know what's left in Warren County. But he is up, and that is not something a lot of people anticipated. So we will see. So Moody County is coming in for John Hanson. Hanson, again, Sioux Falls will very likely determine Hanson's fate. Because if he's not going to do well in Sioux Falls, then that's one thing. And Meade County's 1% in Larry Roden. I don't know what motion he has over there, but damn. Let's see. Any more super chats? Franz Von Gart for Toos is just tuned in. What's up with Spencer Pratt? He's not, we haven't had any results come in yet, but he might come in second. We'll see if he advances tonight. It's up in the air. John Waffles, his thoughts on Dominic T. I'm not familiar, honestly. Sounds like a Polish individual. Louis Viaro says most voters in the Republican primaries are... Exactly. And that's the thing, because, as somebody who I feel like gets the pulse well where it actually counts, while still trying to push the envelope where I think it needs to be pushed, I would never think about spending my political capital just going all in anti-Israel, because it doesn't make sense. Because a lot of the people that they traffic in, and I don't use these terms lightly, but objectively conspiratorial things about the state of Israel that don't make any sense under scrutiny. They don't hold up. They're schizophrenic. And none of these attacks come from a good place. They come from schizophrenia. Many of them are promoted by third worlders themselves. And that's the thing. Now, a lot of older Republicans are pro-Israel. A lot of younger Republicans are, I guess they have more like the J.D. Vance perspective, where he's not anti-Israel, despite many people trying to paint him as such because they want to drive a wedge between him and Rubio. But it's like, we're not going to do this thing where, we make it unquestionable, because there are times where our interests might converge, and that's true. And that's Trump's position as well. And Trump's position's the right position. He goes out there and he eviscerates Netanyahu. And he actually controls him and takes credit for, quote-unquote, saving his ass. Because guess what? Netanyahu's not that well liked in Israel. He's not that well liked in certain other parts of the world. Trump is essentially saving him from the deep state within Mossad, which also exists. Just like we have one in our own government. It's like people just need to view it as any other country, one that's relatively friendly to the U.S. They, treat Christians far better than any country in the region, whether people want to point to these like isolated incidents or not. So that's the correct takeaway with Israel. We talk about it because everybody else talks about it, and that's the way it is. Crimson for two says thoughts on Arizona House seats. Well, we're going to hold Crane's seat. I don't know about the other two. Big Meech says, tuning in, can you give a recap? I can't because there's so much we don't know. There's so much we don't know, and we don't know how this is going to go. John Waffle says, we wouldn't have these special country problems if we banned people from dual citizenship. I don't know if that's necessarily it. I mean, dual citizenship is not something I support, but again, you have people that just have this like worldview towards a nation. And you also have things on the other side too. And it's just whether they support it for their own means or theological means, or because even when it comes down to something like Russia, even if Russia had a U.S.-friendly government, which I don't think they do now, but it's, you know, they're not the Soviets. They're also not friends. We're not friends with them. We're not pro-Russia. But you will have people that are just very, very anti-Russia because it's Russia. And it doesn't even matter if Putin was like actually the way that a lot of, you know, the propagandists for him say he is, they would still oppose it because it's Russia. You know, moving the votes of boomers and people that are stuck in their ways is extraordinarily difficult, no matter which side they're on. And I think it just, when you're set in your ways, you're set in your ways. I don't think it's a boomer thing specifically. I'm assuming it was the same in the silent gen, except when Democrats kept going too much to the left, they would switch, but only because they were set in their ways. That's the thing. So I don't know if dual citizenry or dual citizenship is driving it. In fact, you have people like Dan Bilzerian who are triple citizens who hate Israel. So, again, I'm not entirely sure the dual citizenship thing is a big deal. And also Randy Fine, who's very pro-Israel, wants to ban dual citizens from serving in Congress. But apparently I'm told that I'm supposed to not like the guy, even though he's arguably a top 5 congressman, at least for the past 2 years or year, since ever he's been in there, which is a little bit over a year. But you get the point. So this is close. It is a nail biter in the state of Iowa. Oh, man. And South Dakota hasn't really moved much either. So it is interesting, guys. It is interesting. We have 2,200 live viewers. Please like the stream. Please subscribe. I'm sure we're going to get a lot more people pouring in when California drops, when California comes in, because that's typically how these things go. And then we get the goal button back. So let's see if we can capitalize on that. But we will go live next week if we hit the goal, which we will set for the next 2 hours. We'll see if you guys want to help us reach that goal. Feel free. If not, that's perfectly fine. But to lock in next week's stream, which I probably am going to do anyways, but to lock it in for sure, you guys know what to do. So it's funny because Justin McNeil spent no money and he's still getting a quarter of the vote. Like, that's how bad the incumbency thing is for certain people right now. And this thing is going down the wire. If Dusty finishes in 4th, I think we can say it was a success. We'll see. And this is just down the wire. This is just hard to even read. Now, Story County, how that comes in. Again, the college towns are surprisingly in for Feenstra. And Lon has flipped Plymouth County, which is not really a good sign for Feenstra. He's going to need a really strong showing the rest of the way, and I'm not so sure he's getting it. That is really, really something. Now, South Dakota will go back there, and nothing is currently transpiring. Still at 31%. We don't know what's going on in Sioux Falls. Again, will Hansen be able to get in the runoff spot? If Roden's doing well out here, I'd lean towards no, but you never know what's going to be capable of happening because we have so much of the vote left. How's the late vote going to go? Is Doden going to pick up steam? Probably not enough to get to 35, but Trump didn't want Dusty, and he didn't endorse in this race, which who knows which way he's going to go now. But Zach Lon, he leads by 1.1% now. Warren County, he's in third. Yeah, and you know how they're going to spin this. They're going to spin this as Trump fails in Iowa. Now, I don't know if I would say that because you had somebody that ran a campaign for much of a campaign and actually outspent Feenstra and ran a more Trump campaign in a way than Feenstra did. So if anything, who knows what the margin would be if Trump endorsed Lon? For all we know, he'd be up by 10. So it is a big upset if he wins. I mean, it is. We could take the Kalshi losses on the chin, but we know how annoying it's going to be navigating that universe. It's not like I care much about Feenstra anyways, but you understand how these people operate when they can try to get any one up on Trump or try to diminish his influences is waning in the party. From both sides of retardation, the establishment side, the fringe side. Now it's a dual side thing, and I think that's a good thing because we've become the moderates in a way. We're the moderates now. The fact that we're, they say punching right. I don't believe it's punching right if you're punching against people that are literally endorsing Democrats in 2026 and 2028. But we're the moderates now. And I tell people this, identify as a moderate, period. People want to say, oh, no, that's like weak. And I say, no, that means that you're the center of gravity. Like, people panic when I say I'm a moderate Republican voting for Ken Paxton. No, I'm a moderate. If every Democrat except Bernie Sanders and Ilhan Omar is a moderate, then I'm a moderate too on the other side. Why not? Think about it. They don't want to. They never do. They never think. They're not capable of it. Fard Box for 5 says, good work, Red Eagle. Keep it up. We must vote in the midterm, but also, the local elections are in the midterm, but thank you. Logan Agi for a member chat says, I just got here. Can I get a recap? Who's winning? It's not a matter of who's winning because we don't even know. It's too early. There's nothing unexpected other than Randy Feenstra showing extreme signs of weakness, which, oh well. Happens. But either way, we're waiting on... Do we have Montana? We got Montana in. The Democrat primary is all over the place. The physiognomy is just telling. That's just insane. You know what to expect when you go to these red state Democrats. You know what you're looking at. But nothing out of Davenport. That could be what determines it. But again, some of his district is voting for Lon. That's not good. It's not good for him. Now, it's not over. There's plenty of remaining counties that have yet to even report a single vote. And it's still neck and neck. We don't know how the state's going to vote up here, but it's like you have one county, 51-28, then the next one, he's losing. Like, these coalitions don't make sense. They don't. And that's how these primaries go. It's not like there's a reason for any foul play against Randy Feenstra. LinRx52 for 10 says, higher up, your thoughts on people like Brandon Straka and Derek Evans reaming Trump for dropping the weaponization fund for now. Shouldn't they be screaming at Congress and not Trump? I mean, I guess so. If Congress is funding it, then they should be. If they're talking about the fund to go after the political opponents at the DOJ or whatever, assuming that's what you're talking about, I mean, They've already done a fair share of that without a need for a specific fund. If you look at I don't know what Pam Bondi was doing. To her credit, as Attorney General, she won at the Supreme Court. She was solid on immigration. She obviously bungled the release and whatever of the whole Epstein stuff, which was just a PR crisis that, they didn't need to step on that rake, but they did. When it comes down to it, she wasn't the worst on the surface. But again, we live in a certain time when right-wingers are being shot at, the president's being arrested and shot at, and you need somebody who's going to go after the people that are doing this to stop that. And you finally have that from somebody who a lot of people didn't really expect to go after the political opponents in Todd Blanche, especially because I think he even voted for like Hillary in 2016 or something. And it doesn't mean that he isn't capable of changing his mind. Obviously, you look at somebody like J.D. Vance, who abstained in 2016 and kind of got red-pilled a bit late or whatever. But he's done a great job so far in terms of Blanche. And I don't know what's going to happen. Keep him as AG for the end of the year. I think Trump's going to probably go with Ron DeSantis after he's done with being governor. I think Trump wants to appoint him for attorney general. I could be wrong, but that's probably why he's not rushing, is because of two things. And Dusty Johnson, with 17% of the vote, is actually up in Sioux Falls. So could that salvage him as he looks forward to a possible runoff? We'll see. But again, it's still early vote-ish, 17%. There's a lot of vote left. But we'll see. As we go back to Iowa, 9-inch pincher for 5 says energy is real here in LA for Spencer Pratt. The left calls him a fascist, yet for Senate that like Plattner, they say he's changed. Well, what has Pratt even done that's controversial? I have no idea. Like he's just a guy from Los Angeles who is upset that his city is being run a certain way. But that's the thing. If they see an R next to your name in Los Angeles, they're going to view that person far worse than a Plattner if the Plattner had a D next to his name. Now, if Plattner had an R next to his name, he'd lose the state of Maine by 50 points. But they stick with their people. They stick with and they manage to find a way to win while they stick with the worst of their worst. But again, Republicans can't even support somebody like Ken Paxton, who is objectively a net positive and would deliver on 99% of things Republicans want and has done so as Attorney General. Now, I think a lot of Republicans have, they're not endorsing Tallarico, but John Cornyn is still playing footsie with the third-party candidate, and there's so many things that they need to stop doing and get behind the nominee because they're screwing them over. And you have these lunatics that lie about Paxton, they lie about everybody, and they're trying to placate these people who literally want them dead because they're stupid. They don't know that. I mean, they look past it. They think they can still tame the left or appease the left or get along with the left, and the left wants to crush them. Doesn't even matter what type of wing they come from. So long as they're not endorsing, Kamala Harris, the left is going to go after you, period. That's how they operate. Which is why they don't actually go after the fringes on the right as much as they used to, because they serve the same purpose when they're telling people to not vote or to not vote Republican. They want to amplify those people because it's a double-edged sword. A, they're somebody they can attack the right with, but B, they also tell right-wingers to elect them. So the left wins no matter what. The left wants there to be a dichotomy between just people that represent a dead coalition that does not exist, and also people, okay, that's got to be an error. I don't even know who Brad Sherman is unless he's the county commissioner there. Maybe he is. and more votes are in, and Feenstra gains a little bit. Interesting. So let's see here. South Dakota, nothing new. It's still a tight race, kind of. It just depends what happens in the remainder of Sioux Falls, what happens in the northern rural part of the state. Hanson won McPherson County. There's a lot we don't know about what's left in the state of South Dakota, and there's a lot we don't even know about Iowa, because this is like absurd. The base cat says, did you see the recent Harvard-Harris poll for the generic ballot and Trump's approval? If the figures hold, the blue wave is going to be toilet water. Yeah, I mean, again, I think Democrats are too cocky. I don't look at the generic ballot for the national number. We saw what happened in the Tennessee special, where the urban areas are amped up for the Democrats, but the exurban areas, the rural areas, Republicans are turning out in high numbers there, where they were matching Trump's totals. Now, you can't compare a special to a midterm, but the fact we've seen that pattern in New Jersey, in Virginia, we've seen it all over, where the high propensity Republican areas are doing just fine. It shows that Republican voters are amped up, and you might see an environment similar to 2022, but the independents might swing a bit more against the Republicans than they did in 2022, and maybe you get some more Democrats in the mix. Maybe a little bit more, but not as many as people might imagine. So I'm expecting the Democrats to take the House back. I don't think they're going to do it by much, and I think Republicans hold the Senate at 52 and possibly 53 if Democrats nominate that lunatic in the state of Michigan, which they very well possibly could. So we're waiting more results. Hanson goes up a little bit. Johnson stays where he's at. Roden, I think, went down a little bit. So we have 21 minutes till we get some California, as Iowa is currently possibly on the verge of an upset. So we'll see. Scott B. for two says, what's the outlook for MAGA post-Trump? We'll have to talk about that after the midterms, because we have unfinished business. MAGA needs to survive. We need to be smart. We need to reject the retard right. We need to reject the establishment. And I don't know who does that better than J.D. Vance. Marco Rubio, I think, is VP material. I don't know, given some of the recent rhetoric that he's given on certain things, like immigration, if I would really trust him to lead the ticket over somebody like Vance, who's going to make that specifically the issue. Now, if Rubio's like the foreign policy czar or something, maybe that would get the donors a bit more on board. So long as we can stay out of Iran, hopefully get out of there by the time the election rolls around. And maybe, use that energy on things like Cuba, the Western Hemisphere. That is our domain. It's called the Monroe Doctrine for a reason. I know Iran's not really a country that we should be appeasing in any way, but at the end of the day, I don't think we need to be over there in this 20-year war with them to maybe just win. Like, we have to find a solution sooner than later. Whether that's just completely ending them, whatever leads us to find a resolution, drive down gas prices, it's a balancing act. That's what we have to do. It's a balancing act, and we have to win it. Because there's a lot of wins this administration has done that we would probably be celebrating right now if Democrats weren't just pointing to things like gas prices, which are a problem. I agree. Maybe not for people that it doesn't impact to spend an extra $10 a week on their fill-up, but again, it's just like, we'll see. And again, Dusty Johnson fell a bit, or Larry Roden fell a bit, John Hanson rose a bit, so 40% of the vote is in, and it's still anybody's game. I mean, you're talking about a 2,000 vote difference between those two candidates. Randy Feenster's at 3% on Kalshi. But again, we have nothing out of Davenport. The problem is these rural counties have come in a little bit more for Lon than I think people anticipated. And Feenstra has not been able to do that well in certain parts of the Des Moines area either. We'll see, but so far it seems like... Let's look at the votes left. Story County, Davenport, and what's ever left in Pottawatomie and Lyon could be what dictates the result of this race because it is super close. And if Feenstra wins Scott by 6, and if Story comes in the way Johnson did, yeah, Feenstra's got a shot. He's not done for the way some of the markets might be showing. But he's not in like a good spot either. I wouldn't say he's in a good spot. Now, I don't know what just came in. Because some of the time it depends on the precincts within the counties. I know Aberdeen is in, but it didn't come in a big way. You're still, 2,000 votes from second and fourth with over probably 70,000 votes to count. That could go either way. So we'll see. Let's go back to Iowa. And we still don't have any of those counties we talked about earlier reporting any more votes. But Lon appears to be running away with this thing. So I don't know much about the guy. He doesn't even have a picture. Like, this is who we're dealing with. He doesn't even have a picture. This is a big upset that we're watching. And maybe it means he's a stronger candidate. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. Maybe it means Republicans have a better shot if Feenstra is going to be this week with a Trump endorsement. And Lon is still a relatively like MAGA type of guy, but he still has some, like the actual voter base is still in like the suburbs or whatever. Yeah, maybe he is who we should be nominating. Maybe he's the answer. I don't know much about it. But the fact that you just have a farmer that comes out of nowhere, wins a primary on the Republican side, maybe that's the candidate you need. Maybe it just is. Call it copium, call it whatever, I don't know. But maybe that is a blessing in disguise. Who knows? We'll see. But this is a very surprising outcome, to say the least. There's still counties remaining. We don't know how they're going to go. There's still vote left in some of the big urban centers Lon has a lead in. If it's late vote, it could even break towards Feenstra. But it's a very surprising result so far. So we'll go with that. It's a surprising result because it is. And South Dakota is just, again, a lot of vote remaining. We don't know how it's going to go. The counties that are like mostly in, Hanson tends to be doing a little bit better in them, but not all of them. So maybe that means that he might improve a bit. But Larry Roden, second, Dusty Johnson could be frozen out of a runoff completely, and he just went down to 24% of the vote. And there's still plenty of votes remaining in the Sioux Falls area as well. Still a lot in Rapid City, a lot in Aberdeen. We don't really know. It's like this county, 1% of the vote is in. Johnson's at 24%, but he's only at 20 votes, so you don't even have 100 votes in this particular primary. We'll go back to Iowa. And again, make sure you guys like the stream. Make sure you guys subscribe. Hit the bell. Feel free to super chat. We're 14 minutes away from the polls closing in the state of California, which we're not going to cover the entire results because that could take forever. They count the ballots over the course of like a month. And some of these races are a bit too close to call. But will the Democrats, again, it looked like it was going for a Republican lockout before the Swalwell stuff. Now with less undecideds, the Swalwell stuff, could it be going for a Democrat lockout? Technically, I would lean towards no. But I think it's amusing that Democrats threw one of their own under the bus just so they would win that primary. We'll see. We'll see how it works out. I think it's going to be Hilton and Becerra. And nothing really changed. So we're just going back and forth here. These are the two most high-profile races of the evening. But there's a lot of rural South Dakota that's not fully in yet. And Larry Roden's actually doing much better in rural South Dakota than I think people thought. So maybe that's what's going to possibly lead him to an appearance in a runoff, hypothetically. So let's see. Iowa, they just keep filling in more counties. So let's see if that translates here. And Lon's up by 1.7%. So the upset continues so far for Zach Lon, but still 26% of the vote reporting. Many in areas where, again, it's up in the air. You don't even know who's winning what at this stage in the game. If Davenport comes in the way Dubuque did, Feenstra might have an outside shot. We'll see what happens with Story. We'll see what happens with some of the rural parts of the state. Diego Ramirez for 2, says George Soros. He is Magento from X-Men. Our Dog Show for 5 says I voted for Bianco in California in hopes the top 2 are Republicans. Hilton is dumb, in my opinion, to think he has a chance. Well, you have to say you have a chance. You have to have people show up. And we got to make it as close as possible, because if the top of the ticket is within 20, you're probably winning some house races you didn't think you had a shot in. And maybe it means that the map that was drawn was a complete and total dummy mander. So all of this matters for sure. Becerra is going to be saddled with Newsom's baggage, which, again, although Newsom is popular because it's a Democrat stronghold in California, his popularity may not be 65%. It might only be 55%, which means that the Democrats, and this is why Democrats in California will distance themselves a bit from Gavin Newsom and his administration, because it's not all that popular. It's not. So 44% of the vote is in South Dakota. Iowa, again, Zach Lon heading for some sort of upset, it seems. Some of these counties, it's very strange. You'll have some counties that come out for Feenstra where he gets 49%. Other counties are coming out big for Lon. Maybe it's an industry thing. Maybe it's where the ads were spent. It's not really a media market thing, because you do have plenty of areas that are just contradicting the areas right next to them. So we'll go back to South Dakota. And we have 10 minutes. And again, guys, you guys want to keep the conversation going, feel free. You guys know where to find that super chat function, as Larry Roden is keeping Dusty Johnson in second place. No Trump endorsement in South Dakota. Whoever got it very well likely would have hit 35 and avoided the runoff. And this is one of the cases where the runoff can come into play, because every candidate is in between 21% and 30%, which is not something you would typically see in a primary, but it is something that you're seeing right here. So there you have it for South Dakota. We go back and forth. Some more counties reported, and Feenstra cut the lead a little bit, but not by enough. He got the win in Emmett County. It netted him a few hundred votes. So we'll see. 20% remaining. And it all comes down to a few counties here. Because you look at the votes left. What is left in Lynn County and Johnson County, which again, Johnson is going for Feenstra right now. What's left in Potawatomi, which is going heavily for Feenstra. But I don't know if that could be election day vote. I think he wins it anyways. But how does the remainder of the vote go? Also, you have votes remaining in Davenport, 12,000. Feenstra's probably going to want to net like 1,000 out of these two counties alone, and he's got to win the remainder of the votes by a substantial margin. He should be hoping to do well down here, where all the votes are in. He's up by a few hundred votes in each county. Harrison County, not a big county, 1,100 votes. That one could go either way. We have no idea. That's the beauty of primaries, is that they're much harder to predict. They can go either way. They're fun to watch. So let's check down ballot. How's Marionette Miller Meeks doing? It seems like she's doing stronger than she was doing before. So let's see. Yeah, she's at 72%. She's won that primary, which is maybe a good thing for the general if she's doing that much better. Shows at least the party's more behind her, because she had a big split between her and Trump. It was like 8%, where Trump won by like 8 to 9 in her district, and she only ended up winning by much less. Let's see. Tucson PaleoCon for 10 says Spencer Pratt's odds dropped a few cents on Kalshi. Well, I have him losing, so I can't complain about that particular part of it. And I hope he does well. I hope he wins. It's not about that. I just think for Los Angeles to elect a Republican to be their mayor, it would be a miracle. So I guess win-win either way. Now, Ash K2318 says, as a California, my prediction is Steyer and Becerra make the runoff. As for Texas, I think Tallarico is the favorite, but Paxton has time. Well, I think for like one of the biggest doomer super chatters to make those predictions is probably, I guess, encouraging, if you will. Now, I don't think Tallarico has anything pointing to him being the favorite other than polls that have 12% undecided. Now, Texas is Texas. For Tallarico to win, he's going to need to get 39% of the white vote and 60-some% of the Hispanic vote, which the Democrats lost in 2024, barely won in 2022, and he has all that policy baggage, which everybody knows Paxton. They know him. They know his baggage. It's a liability, you can say. Yeah, Potawatomi County comes in. Feenstra is destroying Lon there. 88% of the vote is in. That was huge for his chances, because now look at the gap. The gap is just 8,000. Separate the two, or not 8,000. 1,600. 0.8 is what I meant to say. And now Feenstra goes up to 13 cents on Kalshi. So we'll see what happens down here. If he wins down here, he wins. Lyon County is 1,100 votes. He's going to also need to win what's left over here, or at least run even. And he's going to need to win in Davenport, Scott County. That could be what determines the race. And the counties that have him in now, he's going to need to run it up. So it was a good thing that he was able to grow his raw vote margin based on Potawatomi for him at 37. It's close. That is razor thin. 15% of the vote remaining. We're going to be covering it as it comes in. Now we'll check South Dakota, where not a lot has changed in the Rushmore state. But there's a lot that is not yet reported. A lot of these are in. Let's see where the votes are. Again, a lot in Rapid City, a lot in Aberdeen, a lot remaining in the Sioux Falls Metro. The way that vote goes could determine who finishes in second, because it seems like Doden is in a strong position to finish in first place. It just depends how the second place goes, because, you know, Lincoln County, Hansen's winning. He's winning in Moody. Minnehaha is Dusty Johnson so far, but is he going to hold at that margin? It's iffy. It's a little iffy. So all eyes on Iowa, where it is neck and neck in this primary, within 1 point, with 84% of the vote reporting. Can Randy Feenstra cross the finish line? Also, California polls closing in a few minutes. And again, guys, we're 6 out of 20 to our goal. We have 90 minutes to finish the goal. So feel free to super chat. 5 and above, we'll read it. Because I know you guys, I haven't been live for quite some time, at least with my face. So to get your input, to get your guys' reactions to the way the midterms are unfolding, to everything, it all helps. So the margin dipped. Now it's 0.75 that separate the two. 85% still reporting. Zach Lon leads by less than 1,500 raw votes. But there's plenty of votes that have not yet been tabulated. The question is, even in these big metro areas, how are the votes going to come in? Because Story County didn't back Lon by that much. How did the remaining votes go? What's left in Johnson County? There's a lot up in the air. And we have nothing in Davenport, which is 12,000 votes, and again, that margin dipped even more. 86% of the vote is in. We don't know where that even came in from. It's not really showing, but that margin dropped. So now it's like 1,300 votes. So Gene in Pennsylvania, thank you for becoming a member. Hartman 11cc for 10. Thank you. I appreciate the 10. Appreciate it. So Adam Steen picks up some momentum. Third place finisher. Someone in chat says NBC is ahead by a lot. Let's check. I'll check it on my end. Not really. It's identical, actually. It's literally identical. So I wouldn't say that. The percentage is also identical, so California polls have closed, and it's going to take years to get the results, but we will periodically look at them and see if they've put in any results. They should probably put some in within the next 20, 30 minutes, as that's how California typically reports. But we do have probably a month before they actually finish counting the ballots, so I wouldn't look at it like it's the first results are going to be all that indicative either. So Zach Lon's back up to 0.8%, but again, 83% reporting. So they adjusted how many votes may remain within the estimate. So there are some votes down here, but there's not many of them. What's remaining in this race will likely come from Lynn County, which is very narrowly going for Lon, Johnson, which is narrowly going for Feenstra, and Scott County, which is a big mystery box that I don't think, okay, and that comes in, and Feenstra, he gains. That's 75% of the vote. It's not quite enough, though. He won those votes by 500 votes. He still trails by 1,200. It doesn't mean it's over, because there's a lot of votes left we don't know. It's a relief for him that he won them, but there's still 3,000 votes left there. There's a combined 8,000 votes in some of these counties. Black Hawk County has more votes. Feenstra is up there. That's a swing county, I believe. So there's more remaining in Sioux City. There's more really all over the place. The question is, how do the final votes come in? Who do they benefit? Are these election day votes? Because if they do, Feenstra might have an edge. If not, Lon might have the edge. But there's still, if I had to guess, based on the percentage of the votes that are in, you still have 20,000 votes remaining. Feenstra needs to win what's left by around 1,300. It's doable, but it comes down to what counties remain, and there's a few small counties, but there's also counties that have reported, and how they shake out with what's left could be what determines the outcome of this race. It could be going to a recount, because that is too close for comfort for either side. So I don't think we have anything new in South Dakota. We'll go to California. Do we have anything in California? We do not. Not yet. So in 2024, it took 10 days for them to get to 95%. So, and again, expect a red mirage. Don't get too excited, because Republicans did front load the early voting, the mail-in ballots in California. They also had a good showing on Election Day. Late mail, which I believe is counted the last out of anything, will heavily favor Democrats, even though it usually doesn't. Zuangis 913 for 5 says, are you going to run for Congress soon? I feel like you're very based and have amazing ideas. Also, keep up the good work. Well, I appreciate it, but I don't have any plans. I don't have any plans for that. So, nothing in California. South Dakota, we're still at 47%. Montana is slow walking it, but there's not a lot of competitive races here. Both of them are already called on the Republican side. All eyes on the state of Iowa, and this one is neck and neck. It's a few hundred votes that separate the two, and that's with Lyon County coming in big for Lon, surprisingly. But the difference is actually it went up to 1,400. Yeah, I think that there's, it depends on what's remaining, but Feenstra could very well be cooked. So we'll see. Hartman 11cc for 5 says, any update on Montana? Appreciate your work. Shout out from Helena, Montana. Too many libs here trying to take over. Well, I think it's more of a liberal area, but Montana itself not really on the verge of going blue anytime soon. But let's see. Yeah, nothing out of the ordinary. Kurt Alme is very much in the lead in the state. Carl Bruh says, do you think Paxton wins by 5 to 8? He could. I would wager it would be around 4. I think it's going to be around 4 points. Because, look, the left is hell-bent on making the guy appear to be this villain, which I think that you could make the case it's at a point where if the Democrats found anybody who was halfway competent and didn't have any baggage, that they might actually give us a legitimate scare or even have a real shot to unseat Republicans in the seat. The problem is the guy they're running is just very out of step with the state of Texas. He's going to try to sugarcoat it. It's not going to matter. Paxton has been here for a long time. People know his name. He's been acquitted by the voters countless times. Every new talking point they give is just desperate. This whole case where the victim didn't testify, wasn't really all that willing to testify, and there was some sort of plea deal that Paxton gave, seemed to be in that situation, if you know anything about how the legal system operates, was probably the most feasible outcome that any attorney general would do. But because it's Ken Paxton, it's a problem. Even though you have countless examples of Paxton being one of the most, if not the most tough on crime attorney generals, there's corruption scandals. But again, it's not like the people that tried to take him down weren't even far more corrupt than he was, so I don't really care about them. Doesn't matter. It's all posturing from the weak Republican establishment. And of course, they give the Democrats talking points in the process. But Cornyn was also somebody who was losing in the polls, relatively weak overall, uninspiring, and bends over backwards for Democrats in the Senate. So if you have an opportunity to get rid of him, you should take that opportunity. Paxton being controversial doesn't fully change that. It just means that you need to do a better job defending him and backing him up financially in the general. And the question is, will they do that, or will they continue to do this thing where they just sit there with their hands under their ass and act like they can, play it cute by promoting third-party candidates this far out on social media? That's going to be what determines the outcome of this race. It's just reality. So this race is in Iowa is really a close one. 89% of the vote is in. Zach Alon leads by 1,433 votes. But again, when you have 20,000 votes remaining, it seems like Feenstra needs to win them by like 5, possibly, which I think he could do, given the fact there's more in Davenport. And it just depends if this is late breaking vote, election day vote. How is that going to go? We'll see. Counties that are like at 50% have Lon up big, but the counties next to it that are all reported, well, they show Feenstra narrowing the gap. So if that pattern continues, Feenstra has a shot. Now, more votes just got tabulated in South Dakota, and 50% of the vote is in. There's still a lot left up to the interpretation in some of these, population centers. But it seems like Dusty Johnson is probably going to be out of a job for the rest of his life, at least in elected politics. And it also seems like Toby Doden and Larry Roden likely advanced to a runoff, because it seems like Hansen didn't do as well in certain parts of the state where you would have at least expected him to place in second or third. Didn't do that well in Rapid City. Might improve as the night goes on, but I don't know if I would wager that he would make up what's left. So nothing. Okay, we do have California, but it's okay. There it is. So yes, a very, very large vote dump for Steve Hilton. That's to be expected. Again, a lot of these votes are Republican votes. The Republicans so far are combining for close to 50% of the vote, but that's not going to hold. This is mainly red areas, and Kings County 70% in. These counties are relatively red, or at least swing counties that the Trump won. And now more votes come in, and Hilton and Becerra are currently in the top 2. So all you really need to hope for is for Tom Steyer to not finish in second place. And ideally, he doesn't even win a single county, although it might be too early to to make that determination. But you need Hilton to win or at least finish in the top 2 so he advances. Now, we don't have anything in Los Angeles, so we can't really cover the mayoral race so far, but a lot of votes remain. So anybody looking at this and saying it's over, I would wager that it's far from it. You're 6% of the vote in. Republicans front-loaded the vote. So they're performing well in some places for sure. But the final result, I'd be shocked if they were above 40. But it could show engaged enthusiasm, and you're going to need to drum that up as much as possible to win in November in California. You need high Republican turnout because registered Republican voters are those voters that appear to be sticking with Trump, sticking with the Republican Party, no matter what. And if they have high turnout and you're putting up solid candidates that they'd vote for, then you're going to have a good election year for the Republicans, at least one where they can stave off some of these possible losses. So I assume that 91% of the vote is in here. As more votes come in, it's a 0.69% lead for Zachlon. Shout out to Love As He Loves for the 10. Appreciate it. We're 9 away from our goal. Make sure to send in super chats, guys. So we'll keep watching California as California reports. But again, it's not who gets first place that wins the governorship. That is misleading. It's who finishes in the top 2 advances to the general election. So do understand that. This is how the system works. I think it's dumb. It's not like you have a Republican primary. They do this so they can freeze out Republicans from the general in some cases, although it almost backfired before they had to end the career of Eric Swalwell just to possibly avoid the possibility of 2 Republicans in the runoff. And it's not really a good showing for Chad Bianco either. If this is like the early vote before his campaign started to falter towards the end and Steve Hilton is already in first place, the question is, can he stay there? We will see. Not a good night for Katie Porter. Eric Swalwell is getting 0.4%. He's still on the ballot. But you got a lot of strange characters. This guy named Barack Obama Shaw on the Democrat side, he's at 0.2%. You have a lot of strange characters in the mix. But let's check the 22nd district. Valadeo's not at 50%. Seems like he's running against 2 Democrats. So this is one to watch, but there's a lot of the district that is not yet reported. A lot of the district that has, some of it is the more Democrat part. Although not really Kings County, and that's going for the Democrats. But I don't know how that part of the district typically votes, but 14% of the vote is in. That could mean he's in trouble in that district. But 6% of the vote is in. Not a lot has changed. We'll go back to Iowa, where Zachlon, he still leads by the same margin. Every county except 2 are in, which have a combined 2,000 votes-ish. But it really just depends on what's left in these big 3 counties. Because if you're dealing with election day vote, the outcome could end up being different. So we'll see. And Lon appears to have gone up as one of those counties benefited him. So the upset is there. So let's see, nothing new. A lot of counties that we just don't know what's left. But Tom Steyer, so far, I would say he's going to finish in 3rd. It's early, but that just appears to be the way it's going. South Dakota. We don't really have anything else in there either. So let's see. World politics today for 10 says, how good of a gauge do you think tonight will be on Republicans' chances to keep the House? I don't know. It doesn't tell you much because it's a primary. You have a different electorate. It seems like Iowa, the incumbents did stronger than we thought they would, at least the incumbent in Marionette Miller Meeks, which might be a good thing for her potential odds. New Jersey, the stronger candidate won in the 7th district, which is probably not good news for Tom Keene because turns out the guy's like nowhere to be found. He hasn't gone into work in months. They don't even know where the guy is. And if that's the way that his campaign's going to run, even though I think Republicans could even be seen as favored in theory, I can't say they'd win that race given the guy's whereabouts. So that's kind of a brutal blow. Now, when it comes down to California, too early to even gauge it. We've seen Republicans do well in the jungle primary and get destroyed in the general, and vice versa. So it's kind of hard to fully gauge with 9% in. I would say it's about average. Doesn't change my mind on anything. Clay Franklin for 10 says Tallarico seems to the left of Newsom. It depends on which you get. Do you get the current Tallarico who's trying to manufacture himself as a moderate, who's a very off-putting human being, or do you gauge it on the actual Tallarico? The Tallarico who daydreams about transgender children and just is somebody that has all this baggage on policy. Because this is what it comes down to, personal baggage versus policy baggage. And Texas, given the strength of the Texas GOP, if they show up and do their part, yeah, they're going to win that race. I would probably wager that they do. It's Texas. You're not going to run somebody who runs a meat-free campaign for anything. It doesn't matter if he's not a vegan. It doesn't matter. The fact that he's now saying he's not shows that he's playing defense on an issue. Like, you might not have people that like Paxton, but that doesn't mean that they're going to vote for this guy if they can't stomach this guy. Because he's going to be a party line vote for the Democrats in a state that voted for Donald Trump by 14 points. You can't really have that. So Steve Hilton continues to build his lead. He's winning Orange County by a lot. He's up by 11 in Orange County. We don't know the 4th place finisher, so we don't know where Bianco's at, but I wager it's like 50-50 total in Orange County, if I had to guess. Let's see. David Kirk for 10 says living for God and country. Dermot for governor in California. Well, I don't know who the hell that is, so I can't comment. But I do appreciate the super chat. Slop Togs for 5 says I've been subbed to Red Eagle for so long I've watched his hairline recede in real time. Fishback for life. Well, clearly you haven't, because my hairline has always been back, for those who don't know. And when I started actually cutting it better, I would get replies and super chats accusing me of having hair plugs. So this is how I know you're not really telling the truth, is because I'm getting accused on one side of having the opposite problem, and then the other side accuses of the other thing. And of course, he supports Fishback, so he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about when it comes down to really anything politically. So I don't think he's really paid attention. And if he has, he hasn't been in agreement. So either way, I appreciate the super chat. Even if it's backhanded, doesn't really matter. A lot of these people have been wrong about everything. So if they're going to insult my looks, actually take it as like an ego-boosting compliment at this point. It's like when you have Harry Sisson that posts your headshot as like a quote-unquote own. And it's like, do we really have to open the vault of material that we have on you if you want to talk trash about me? It's just like, it's unbelievable with some of these people. But no, we appreciate it. All press is good press. All engagement is good engagement. It pays, so long as we just stay to the truth and push what we believe in, it doesn't really matter, does it? So Murphy's in the lead in New Jersey. This is a major problem for not Democrats, but for the people on the betting markets earlier. They were going back and forth and back and forth. It was one of the most schizophrenic things you'd ever witness, because the top three finishers just kept trading blows. Alex Zidane was supposed to be the winner. Justin Murphy was down there at the start of the night at 10%, and then he was going up to 60 and down to 30 and up to 60 and down to 30. I would wager he's probably the favorite now, depending on what votes remain. But, oh well. But this is 95% of the vote is in. Randy Feenstra, yeah, I think he's been upset. It's not over, but it's over. If we could be honest here. So let's see. Let's see. Love as he loves for 10. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Or for 9. But we're 4 away from our goal. We have an hour to reach it. I think we will. But if you guys want to help us reach the goal, please send in a super chat. So Zach Lon appears to be the winner of the Iowa primary, winning in an upset, no less, and possibly boosting Republican chances, because who is this character? We don't know much about him. Could he be the answer? Because Randy Feenstra clearly ran a campaign that was so boring that he was 90% in the betting odds. He won the Trump endorsement, and he crashed. He crashed and burned. Zach Lon, they moved it back to 95, but he has got a 1,600 vote lead. Guys, I'm telling you, Zach Lon's probably going to win this thing, which is just crazy. It's unheard of. So South Dakota, not a lot's changed. More votes have trickled in from the Rapid City area, but it appears you're probably going to get Doden and Roden, assuming nothing drastic changes down the stretch in the runoff there. So we'll see. But it's close. Trump didn't make an endorsement here. If he did, he probably could have cleared the field for either one of these four, assuming you'd have to imagine he'd have at least like 15% pull on the endorsement from whatever voting electorate pool the other candidates were in. So that's interesting. But we'll have a runoff there. It'll probably be one of these days a few weeks from now. But there's no runoffs in Iowa. And Zach Lon, the guy that nobody's ever heard of until a week ago, or even tonight, is going to be the nominee. So that's something. Now, let's see. You have some areas coming in for Steyer, but I don't know if they're going to hold. He's at 24%. If Becerra was surging with the later vote, I would imagine that you probably will see Becerra win most of these counties that are going to be heavily going to the Democrats anyways. But Steve Hilton's in second. I think it's going to be between these two. I know the Democrats are going to do better with the later dumps for sure, because the late mail, the late drop-offs will benefit them. It is true that Election Day should benefit the Republicans. Late, early in-person voting benefits the Republicans. It's just not a very big share of the electorate in the state of California. So, not even a third of the vote is in. Do we have any votes from LA County? Let's check the mayoral race, because I think this is important. Now, it seems like Republicans are going to advance in the AG's race, maybe to probably in the lieutenant governor's race, which, by the way, okay, there are more candidates there, but the AG's race, Republicans are ahead in Orange County. This is an interesting one, because this is just Republican versus Democrat, kind of gauge the overall makeup of where the state is at. So Spencer Pratt's in second place. He's at 27.9%. So I know it's early, but I would have to imagine you get a Pratt-Bass runoff. I'm going to go off on a limb here and say that. You're going to have a runoff between those two. So 39% of the vote is in. That might be all we get tonight. But I would imagine Pratt finishes in second. I would imagine Bass probably beats him. I know people don't want to hear that, but I mean, it's Los Angeles. If he can get 40% in LA, that's a miracle for a Republican. I mean, it's harder to do that than getting 40% in California, which could happen, which is, given the national environment and the way people are talking about the race, it still would be a good thing. But we don't know what's remaining here in Santa Barbara to see if Tom Steyer is going to win that. How are these high-income counties going? Because Steyer does well there. Maybe he will win a county after all. But he's not doing that well in Orange among Democrats. So I don't know how the end result's going to go. Nothing in San Francisco. Nothing in Fresno for the governor's race, although you do have some in for some of the other races for that. You might have two Republicans in this district. This is interesting. Ken Calvert and Young Kim, they could knock the Democrats out of this race, given the redistricting. We don't know how it's going to go, but you could actually have two Republicans there, so that's an interesting development to see if Republicans could lock the Democrats out. Kevin Kiley running as an independent in the 6th district. Is he going to be able to hold on in what should be a more bluely drawn district? I mean, he's only at 24.9%, but if he got the Republican vote, he'd be at, 56 or 46? That's not going to be good enough. But depends on what's out there, depends on what remains, who turns out in Election Day in November. But as more votes get tabulated, we're starting to see a recurring theme, and it's you're going to have a runoff between Becerra and Hilton. And Chad Bianco's down there at 9%. Maybe when Riverside reports, he'll go above 10. But it's not looking to be too good for him, as he was kind of dropping in the polls late. So if this is what he's doing with like the initial early vote, it's not the best case scenario for him. We'll see. And now you have a lot more votes that just came in. And I was right. Riverside reported Chad Bianco leads, but he doesn't lead by much. And that's his home county. So we knew he would do well there, but he's at 11%. So again, would have Swalwell prevented a lockout? It's possible. It's very possible that it could have. He could have actually led to Republicans there, assuming he'd take, 15% between these few. But again, if Bianco's still down there at 11, then that wouldn't be the case. But maybe some of the Hilton vote wouldn't have gone. It's hard to really gauge, but it seems like in practice the two Republican finish was maybe a bit overstated. But that's what the poll showed, but also the high concentration of undecided. So we have plenty of super chats we got to get to. Camrian for 5 says, "Hey Rep, longtime fan here. Thanks for all you do. What are your thoughts on Collins and Ossoff in Georgia? Can Ossoff be toppled?" Well, he's got a lot of money. Although I think the Republicans are going to hold the governorship. So if Republicans run a strong campaign, maybe they could try to force him into a runoff. I just don't know. It could happen, but I think that Republicans have a better shot in other races because they didn't really concentrate on landing a strong candidate there. So I don't really see it. So Nicholas Thomas for 10, thank you. City Gamer for 5 says, just to hit the goal. Thanks for the analysis. Well, thanks for helping me hit the goal. Marty Smith fan for 20 says, "Hi Rep, just wanted to support the stream. I'm in San Diego, longtime subscriber since 2018. Well, I have to correct you on that because the channel wasn't a thing till 2019, but no worries there. Also, my buddy in Iowa said he voted for Lon, hoping for Hilton and Pratt. Well, Hilton and Pratt should advance. I don't think either of them are got a snowball's chance in hell at winning the general. But you never know, and it's good to compete. Because if Hilton does well in the general, that means Republicans as a whole do well, which means you have several House seats that might be in play that otherwise wouldn't be in play, which means that you have a shot at freezing the Democrats out of the general. So the fact Republicans are getting 41% statewide so far, again, not saying that would hold, but there's enthusiasm there relative to the typical partisan lean of California in a year that's supposed to favor the Democrats according to all polling or whatever. You know, the primaries with more people showing up, they are more indicative for what it's worth. And Pratt is inching closer and closer to being in some sort of runoff. So that's another positive thing for him. So let's see. World politics for tense. Does Tallarico running an anti-meat campaign in Texas, of all places, means Democrats have run out of dumb ideas? Well, apparently they're saying this was a few years ago. Like that changes anything. You're in politics forever, and if you want to pivot, just like Kamala Harris or Mitt Romney or Hillary Clinton or any one of these people, what does that show you? It shows you that you're just not cut out for this. It never works, and it shows how dishonest he is. If he wants to pivot, it shows dishonesty. You want to talk about Paxton and corruption? He's trying to pull the wool over the eyes of the voters. Everybody knows everything about Ken Paxton there is to know. Democrats lie about it. They exaggerate it. What you see on this other side is this lunatic who says all these crazy things, and he tries to say, oh, it was just like a few years ago. Oh, it was trendy then. So you go with the trends? You're an idiot? Is that what you're saying? You don't have any agency? Like, do they really think that that's a winning strategy? You have to be insane to think it is. There's not a lot of independents in Texas, and those that do are not going to be fans of this guy. This guy's more in line with Beto 2022 than even Beto 2018. Plus the whole fake moralizing and the fake Christianity, that doesn't peel off Christian voters. It makes them mad at you because you're an absolutely heretical individual that people are not going to trust if you're trying to gaslight them about what their faith actually is about. I would respect Tallarico a hell of a lot more if he was just like an open agnostic or whatever who says that he doesn't like Christianity, because at least it's not subversive. At least you're not trying to, lead people who are not astray to be astray. That's the worst thing you can have, period, is people that operate like that, the heretics. If you have somebody running for office who's not a Christian but open about it, and it is what it is, like, I'm not going to sit here and try to even use that as a talking point against that person, period. Tallarico is far worse than somebody who's just a mere atheist or agnostic person, because Tallarico is somebody who tries to rewrite the Bible, says insane things like God is non-binary and all this other stuff. Like, that's not going to play out too well. Even if you try to engage in mental gymnastics to justify it, it comes off as insulting to voters, and there's no way around it. So I would probably encourage that, I hate to give them advice. They won't listen to me, but it probably would be better to drop that shtick entirely. But it can delude donors into thinking they can win. It's the same thing when Republicans do. I wouldn't even say it's the same thing as Republicans doing black outreach, because black outreach typically for Republicans doesn't go anywhere, but it also doesn't make people angry. It doesn't make people mad at them. It doesn't come off as gaslighting. This comes off as gaslighting, and it's a waste of resources. So I actually hope they continue to do it, because them making people angry and making people mad is going to make them lose. So let them continue. It's the dishonesty. He would do much better if the dishonesty wasn't there. But also they're saying he's real masculinity. They assigned him a girlfriend the same way they did for Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham and all these other, well, they didn't even do that for Lindsey Graham. But the way that Tim Scott had a fake quote unquote girlfriend or whatever, or everybody thought it was fake, they're doing it for this guy which just draws attention to the rumors that he's probably like a Pete Buttigieg type, if you will. But at the end of the day, I think that they're actually drawing more attention to it when they engage in that stuff. But they keep doing it. And it's the way they gaslight about it is ridiculous. They're like, oh, look at him. He's got a super hot girlfriend. It's like, really? Like, she's like mid? Like, she's not ugly. I guess for Democrat activist class standards, that's like 10 out of 10. But like, whatever. It's not the point. I'm not necessarily bringing that up to attack her. I'm bringing it up to say these people are just insane, trying to like gas themselves up into believing that this guy's like some sort of masculine Chad who's pulling the most attractive woman in Texas. And it's like, is that person in the room with us right now? Because if all you have left is gaslighting against somebody that you say is like objectively corrupt, is objectively a lunatic, then you have nothing. You have absolutely nothing. You're going to lose. You're just trying to make people's lives miserable in the process because you're taking brain cells away from people. And it's honestly incitement the way they attack these people, if we're going to be completely honest. I mean, they keep hitting new lows with whatever word they want to throw out there. Let's see. We have a lot of super chats coming in. I can't load them all, guys. I gotta refresh. I'll get to them. Don't worry. Let's look at Iowa. Yep, Zach Lon. He's in the lead. And nothing new in South Dakota in terms of the final vote share. So either way, let's see. Let's go back to the viewer. Okay, there we go. Kodos for 20 says, how's it looking for the right? Well, if you're talking about tonight, it's not looking anything. I mean, you get a rhino possibly out of the governor's office in South Dakota. You may have even stumbled across a gem in Iowa that could save Republican odds in the race. I don't know much about Zach Lon. We'll see. Rusty Shackelford for 20 says, big messed up my fellow Iowans. I'll vote for him, but dude is talking about rising cancer rates and the water nitrate levels. I'm here to tell you that stuff is fake and gay, total internet candidate. Well, I don't know. I don't know to what extent he's conspiratorial. That's the thing. Because if he's doing the RFK thing, then that might be a net positive, because you have people that really do care deeply about that stuff, and they do exist in big numbers in Iowa. But I would hope that he would run a campaign that is more dynamic than this guy is Maha and that's it, because that's not going to win either. But if it's part of his campaign, that could be helpful. That could win. Some people are saying he's gone on Tucker Carlson. Again, that might raise some question marks because of the recent turn Tucker has done. Did he go on a year ago or did he go on a month ago? Those are two very different ball games here. So, again, I'm not putting down the guy. I don't know the guy. I think it could help Republicans if he does, as John Waffle says for 10, that he's running a blue-collar campaign. That could be helpful. But is that what he's doing, or is he one of these more, retard right types that got lucky? I never heard of him, so probably not. If he's going to go on a podcast, I'd have to see what the podcast was about. If somebody is starting out a run for governor, they're polling at 4%, and they go on a podcast with somebody I disagree with for exposure, I'm not going to even knock that too much. I want to see the full extent of what the candidate stands for, because it is true that if Lon wins and he turns out to be somebody that the voters view as some lunatic or conspiracist, and I don't use those terms lightly in the slightest, it's going to be a problem for the general. But if he has tapped into grassroots energy and beaten a Trump endorsement on legitimate issues as a working class farmer who ran a blue collar campaign, then I think you could be looking at somebody who'd be very strong and possibly somebody that would have a future in politics, possibly beyond Iowa. So I don't know. We'll see. But hopefully he's going to be strong, and hopefully he's not one of these terminally online candidates who just happened to get lucky. Peter Masseri for 2 says, do you think Vivek will possibly lose? Possibly, but I wouldn't bet on it. Ohio's red now. That's one thing that's true. And Amy Acton is still Amy Acton. She's done, to her credit, a fair amount to clean up her image. Vivek is somebody who is going to be attacked because he's not the strongest candidate. However, he's the nominee. You can't, if you live in Ohio, vote for the Democrat or sit it out. That being said, he made missteps. Attacking American culture, that's a misstep. Talking about how you need a year-round, 8-hour school day or whatever, that's a misstep. And trying to say it's AI instead of just backtracking normally is a misstep. There's plenty of missteps. Allowing some lunatic who didn't spend a single dime to get 20% of the primary vote is a misstep. Although, to be fair, I think people were just voting against Vivek, but the fact that you'd see that support against him, that's a misstep. So, again, I wouldn't say he's the strongest candidate, but I do hope he wins because it reflects bad on Trump if he doesn't. Ohio Republicans are weak. They'll bend over for the state legislature. It's a bad thing. And again, the issues Vivek is the weakest on, like so-called merit-based immigration or whatever, that's a national issue. There are things you can do at the state level about it, but it's like pulling teeth, and usually you can't increase the number. Like, I guess data centers or whatever, people might say that's an issue. My take on data centers is this. If they are strategically placed to not drive up energy costs, I support them. Because when you look at China and you look at these other places, they want to win the AI race. We don't want to lose it to them. And you're going to need some sort of way to do that. Now, if you can say we'll do it in like rural Nebraska so it doesn't impact as many people, that's fine. But again, these are the same people that got mad at Trump and the big, beautiful bill when he talked about nationalizing the issue of AI because they were freaking out because it wasn't going to be a state issue. So, you can't deal with a lot of these people because they don't have a coherent worldview on the surface. 559 Texans, is Hilton doing good in LA? Well, again, keep in mind, guys, it is early. So long as Hilton finishes in the top 2, it's fine. He's not doing that well. I mean, he's at 23%. If Republicans combine for 30% in LA, that's fine, but I'm pretty sure that's about what Trump got in 2024, and I don't even know if they're going to combine for that much when it's all said and done. BB for 2 says Lon being Maha might help him. It might. Hopefully he isn't completely just Maha and nothing else, because if you're Maha and you're nothing else, that could be a problem. I don't know how this race is going to go. I think the next few weeks are going to determine quite a bit for me in terms of what I think about this race, because you have some no-name who's going to be your nominee for governor, but he has actually raised more money than the establishment candidate, which is partially why he won. But what are his associates? I'll support him no matter what because he has an R next to his name, and Democrats want your head on a stick. But what is he going to do as governor? What is he going to do as a campaigner? Because if he's going to run a campaign talking about, atrazine and the water turning the frogs gay, as funny as that would be, and as accurate as that would be, I'm not sure that's a campaign that's going to win statewide in Iowa in a blue year when you have an unpopular Republican governor in Des Moines. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, guys. I will be watching. We will all be watching what happens with Zach Lon. So it's an upset. We like upsets. They're fun. It's not fun when you place a little wager on the candidate who's supposed to win. It's not a lot of fun. But I will tell you that Feenstra, he's a loser. He's done. You dropped the ball when everybody knew that you were going to win or thought you were going to win, and you got the Trump endorsement and you still lost. That's pathetic. Catlord 007 for 5 says, big fan, been watching since 2006. I remember the long mullet. Go Hilton from the Central Valley in California. Yeah, it was definitely. I wasn't here in 2018, but I was here in 2006. Sure, we can go with that. YouTube was a thing back then, to be fair. I doubt there was a single election analysis video on this platform in the year 2006. So that's interesting. Like the internet, there's people that can drink now that I believe are younger than YouTube. But it's just kind of crazy how time has passed. But that's the way it is. So Hilton is in second, I believe. Or he's in first, but probably finishes in second when the votes are in. We'll see what happens in San Diego. We'll see what happens with what's left in some of these counties where Steyer leads. San Francisco's not in yet, but he's not doing that well in the surrounding areas. A lot of people thought Steyer could win that county, and I don't think he's going to. But he's winning Santa Barbara, so we'll have to see if he wins a county or not tonight. But it's a good thing that he's in third because you're probably going to get Hilton and Becerra in the runoff, so we'll see. Now, Attorney General's race, Republicans are at 41. They're only, again, this is the whole electorate, and I know some Democrats are going for the Green Party candidate, although not really uniformly because the Green Party's getting 4% in red areas. So, again, split them however you want, but it's only it's not even a 13-point race for AG in that primary. And that's an incumbent against a Republican. So, again, that could be an interesting thing to watch. Now, I don't know if it's going to stay that way by any means because there's a lot of vote left, and that vote will probably favor Dems by a bit because they picked up a little bit more steam in the returns the later that things went. So, assuming that they're counted that way, the Democrats are going to pick up a bit. Now, I don't think we have any more results out of LA Mayor. Oh, we do. Spencer Pratt, he actually went up. So, again, top two advance. Pratt's at 30. I wouldn't wager he wins in November for the record. But for a Republican in Los Angeles City proper to be getting 30% of the vote is not something to gloss over, especially because he'll be advancing to the general and running against somebody who, now it comes out, has ties to communist Cuba. Like, that's who he'd be running against. So they're not sending their best by any stretch of the term with these people in these cities. I mean, you have Mamdani, you have Brandon Johnson, and all these people. Mamdani hasn't done anything, which is probably why his approval is not in the gutter. But if things don't change, again, even his own base might start to turn on him. Or he's going to suck up to the establishment, which also doesn't like him. So he's kind of in a lose-lose situation right now. So, yeah. But Becerra took the lead because you have votes in. And actually, San Francisco is in, and Tom Steyer is up. San Diego, Steve Hilton's actually winning San Diego. I don't know if that's going to hold, but he was in favor to take that county. Now it seems like he might. So that's interesting. So, let's see. Now Hilton's up again. I don't know what dropped. Some of these counties possibly dropped that put him up. So, yeah, but you're not seeing, like in some of these counties, like LA County, for Republicans to be doing that well with the mayoral race so far, you're not seeing a big Hispanic drop-off in support for Republicans so far in this combined primary. The way that Democrats have romanticized about and talked about, especially even compared to 2024 down ballot, you're not really seeing that. So we'll see. But and this is interesting. Scott Wiener is up in the 11th district primary. This guy is known for voting to legalize underage gay sex. So long as the people were 16 years of age or older. He is a clown. He is a caricature. And he's probably going to be a congressman. So we'll have a new easy target, I guess. So, oh well. These are the priorities of these people. Let's go to, South Dakota. Where's the governorship at? Here it is. So Larry Roden, Toby Doden probably going to a runoff. We'll see. I mean, Dusty's falling a bit in Sioux Falls, but not probably enough for Hansen to overtake him at the moment. Although there's something good about seeing the establishment candidate just get decked. You know, that used to be the majority of the party. Now it's like a sliver. And a lot of the people voting for them are just voting for the name they know. They're just voting straight ticket Republican in a primary, if you will. So it's just a good thing to see this change, this sea change. I mean, even though like Mike Rounds sucks, Justin McNeil is a nobody who spent $0 and didn't even try to campaign, and he's still pulling a quarter of the vote against Mike Rounds. Like, it's insane. If Republicans even put a candidate out there that tried, maybe they would have given a run for his money. And we'll see what happens with Lindsey Graham, even though Trump endorsed him. Now, I'm not even on board with the opponent necessarily in that race, because the opponent could be one of these like Massey types that, you know, votes to kill bills that you need. And Trump's going to go for Lindsey because it's like his friend that he keeps in line when he's there. Now, Lindsey for those other 4 years is going to probably be a disaster, at least if a Democrat gets in. But I think if a Democrat gets the presidency, no matter what, we're going to be absolutely screwed in 2028. And I think that the GOP needs to do what they can to mitigate that possibility in the meantime. So wrap up what's going on overseas. Make sure that you get gas down. Make sure voters feel an upward trajectory of the economy. Continue to prioritize cutting immigration, mass deportations. People need to see their surroundings improve, and they will reward you. That's it. Because everybody knew during the 4 years between 2021 and the election time in 2024, taking away the whole COVID thing, which people didn't seem to factor in, nor should they have factored it in, it went down. Even during COVID, you could afford certain things that became ridiculously overpriced just months after Biden took office. And then you see the surge to the border. You see any of the jobs created aren't real, or they're going to foreign-born Americans. It's disturbing that you see that in this country when you have so many people that are capable, that are young people that are in the job market, and they don't have upward mobility. That's a problem. And the administration has done some things. I'd like to see them do more regarding that, for sure. I think they stopped the bleeding. But in terms of actually like going after companies that, you know, seek out foreign labor before they seek out Americans because they know they can afford to pay them less. Like, you could do that in their own countries. You could ship in that case, you should ship the jobs overseas, because at least then you're not actually impacting the communities that people live in. So that's the difference. Now, we'll see what the GOP does, but we're moving the ball in the right direction. So for people that feel like they're upset that not enough is being done, I think the worst thing you can do is take yourself out of the political process, lose the plot completely, join the other side for some reason or another, because that's not going to get us anywhere. It's not. So we'll see what happens in the next few years. We'll see what happens in the midterms, but this is a crucial election. Texas's Senate race, a crucial election. All these races are crucial elections. Republicans need to win all of them. There's not a single one where it benefits the future of the country if the Republicans happen to lose. There's not a single race that goes that way. So William Aguilar for 5 says, with how things in California are going in regards to sentiment and demographics, does this mean California could swing Republican in the 2030s after the census? Well, it's already swung that way. I don't know if it is going to completely move to the right anytime soon, but it is not a cakewalk for Democrats when you're at a point where Florida might be voting to the right more so than California is voting to the left in an election year like 2032. Sure, it depends on like Hispanic trends. How do third-generation Hispanics go? Do they continue to move right? You know, the thing is that even though Trump did well, down ballot's a different story. But then again, if you look at the Deep South in the 1990s, like that was the first time Republicans won in states that Reagan would win big. So it's not, there's more to it than that. You can't compare presidential elections to these special elections or even midterm elections. John Waffle for 10 says, red flag, Lon's interview with Tucker was in March of this year. I haven't watched it, but the optics don't look good. Well, yeah, that's not ideal. Now, in terms of somebody who just goes on an interview, like where did the interview go exactly? Like what's going on here? Because again, this is a guy who is definitely like running a strong blue collar campaign. That's true. That's good. Is he sparking about Israel or something like with that interview? Like how does this guy operate? I think that determines the outcome, because somebody going on Tucker Carlson in and of itself, you could say, is not a disqualifier for a candidate in terms of their ability to win a general election. But if they're going down this pathway of, oh, we're going to embrace this terminally online stuff that most Republicans don't even resonate with, then how are you going to put a coalition together to win? That's what it comes down to. So I don't know what he said on the interview. Bottom line is I know Tucker now is not the same as he was a year ago, and Tucker a year ago is not the same as he was on Fox. So we'll see. But Iowa is in a weird spot right now. And if this guy could save it in the midterms, or he could tank the entire ticket, which would be an utter disaster. So we need to keep tabs of that, because if this guy's another Doug Mastriano, yeah, the Senate race is in play. And I hate to say that, but you know how these things go, where one person in a midterm year can tank the whole ticket. This isn't reverse coattails with Trump and Mark Robinson. Now, I'm not saying Zach Lon's that guy. I'm not saying he is. But if he is, then it's not good. So we'll see. I'm not writing him off. I'm not writing him in. I don't think either of those things are anything other than a knee-jerk reaction that could backfire completely. So let's see. But we're 2 hours and 4. We're going to go for 17 more minutes. So if you guys have any more super chats, send them in, because it just seems like California is not going to count the full votes. We're not going to do this like 10-hour live stream when it's not like a major midterm or Super Tuesday or anything like that. But it's an interesting development here in California, where you have the Republicans in the AG race actually not doing that bad. Now, I don't know if it's going to hold at 42%, but the total margin is not that high. And even if you assume the Green Party would split, add 2 points to the total, half the vote is in, Democrats be up 15. It's not ideal. So keep that in mind. Now, nothing new for the mayoral race. Nothing is new across the board. So we're reaching the point where the votes have stopped to come in at the rate they were coming in before. Iowa's pretty much all the way in. Zach Lon appears poised to possibly walk away with this. We don't know what's in Montgomery County, but I can't imagine that it's going to narrow the gap by 1,800 votes. It could go to a recount, but Sneeden feeds it. How did Feenstra lose? Well, I don't know. You have the establishment support. Maybe that hurt him. You had Trump's endorsement that came in very late. Wasn't really going to be a major help to him. And Iowa is very rural, and he ran a blue-collar-esque campaign. And he's in for a big test to see, can this grassroots guy go out there and win against somebody who the Democrats are going to put up, who is basically running a campaign like he's a moderate Republican. Now, if you had that in Texas, you don't have, obviously Tallarico has proven that that's not who he is, but if it was, maybe we would be in trouble. Although it's a federal race, not a statewide race. I don't think Rob Sand would be favored in a Senate race in the state of Iowa. But with Zach Lon, he's a wild card. Nobody knows. Is there dirt on him? Is he so much a threat to the establishment that they'll run his name through the mud? Or is he one of these more retard right people who happen to get lucky in a primary by essentially just having a bunch of money and spending it? I don't know. We have yet to see. We really have yet to see how it unfolds. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's also a strange, embarrassing development for Randy Feenstra, more so than it is for anybody else. Like, this is a guy who was polling in the high 40s. It wasn't a big sample size of polls, but he lost a lot of ground. And that's not ideal for him. So we'll see. Let's go back to California. Do we have any new developments? You have half the vote in, which is surprisingly quick for California. Republicans at 38% in Imperial County. That's about expected for a primary like this. Becerra should, maybe do well with Hispanic voters to the point where maybe he will crack 60 in the general. Hopefully Hilton can mitigate it, can expose Becerra for being just another Newsom type. Might be a bit tougher to do, but we'll see. Yeah, because half the results were reported by 5 a.m. Half the results are reported now. So California, kudos, doing something better. Maybe it's because more Republicans voted early, more of the voters voted early, which is why you saw that shift. But who even knows? We have 13 minutes till we'll wrap up the stream here. Let's go to Montana. So Alani Bankhead appears to be the Democrat nominee for Senate, although Democrats are going to coalesce behind an independent. The first district, they're running a Bernie bro, or at least he's leading, who ran for governor, Ryan Bussey. That is not a joke. That is legitimately his name. And he is at 35.5% of the vote, but he's only up by 800 votes. So I don't know who wins that one. It's probably better for the Republicans in their odds of holding the seat. Not like they should have too much of a problem anyways, because it's a very Trump-heavy state. And Republicans are outvoting the Dems by a decent margin in the primary in Montana too. So there's that. So let's go to Iowa. So nothing. It's funny because Hinson was the establishment pick, and she ended up winning by 50 points. But at the governorship level, I think it's a mix of several things. I really do. I think you have somebody that runs a grassroots campaign. They're facing but they also had the cash advantage, and they're also facing the candidate the establishment endorsed. And when you have a combination of those things, the outcome can be Zach Lon. So it's something to watch. We don't know what the deal is with this guy. We'll have to. I think we're going to find out a lot more in the next few days, if I have to be completely honest. Check out California's 6th district. Let's see. I'll do that. I saw that. They could be. I mean, it depends on what's left. Because if Republicans can get over the hump, and this is huge, if it holds, which I would anticipate the remainder of the votes to come in to be more Democrat favorable. But we also don't know which Democrat will benefit. And if that's the case, Michael Stansfield would only need 1,100 votes to net to knock the Democrats out of the election, which would automatically make this a pickup for the Republicans. They probably would lose it 2 years later. But if you're talking about holding the House, this could be a seat where Republicans could make the Democrats' election system blow up in their face. And that would be something if they make it happen. I'm not saying they would or it's a guarantee, but it's not impossible. It is not impossible. Just depends on how the remainder of the votes come in. But, I mean, I would say that I wouldn't bank on it just because I think the rest of the votes will lean Dem and they'll benefit all the remaining Democrats as a result. So we're seeing more votes come in. 47% of the votes are in. Steve Hilton and Xavier Becerra are currently having an added sense of separation on Tom Steyer, which means that Republicans will have at least a candidate in November, which is crucial for actually drumming up enthusiasm for Republicans. It doesn't mean that they're going to win it, but if you have somebody on the ballot, it's better than nothing. Even if you get 40%, even if you get 37%, it's better than getting 0% when it comes down to these down ballot races that you have that you're going to need people turning out for that might not otherwise be paying attention to them because they only follow the statewide level politics. So Marty Smith Fan for 10 says Lon was endorsed by TPUSA. Well, that's a positive sign. You know, they're not going to endorse just anybody. So the fact that they endorsed him is more positive. That's a more positive development. So hopefully that's a good sign of things to come. Brother Ted for 5 says with 46% of the votes counted in LA, the direct Bass-Pratt matchup is looking inevitable. That's correct. Not a lot has changed. I don't think anything's changed since we last looked at it. But it does appear to be, I mean, it's not just like a 6-point game between these two. It's like a 10-point game between Pratt and Rahman. So Pratt advances most likely. Depending on how the rest of the votes go, I'd be shocked if he didn't. Even if his vote total drops, I think he does advance. And as a result, Republicans will be able to be enthused to turn out for something in LA. Doesn't mean that he's going to win, but enthusiasm helps, I guess. So let's see. A little more red than expected. Yeah, I mean, LA City proper is not known for being the most Republican stronghold, and that we know. I think he could crack, assuming that he stays around this margin in the final count, I think he could pick up some of the anti-Bass vote, possibly push towards 40 in the general. We'll see if he's able to get above that, but well, it seems to be an interesting election, but they're going to be counting these votes for days on end. So the fact we got half already is good. I don't think we're going to see any more meaningful vote dumps coming right now out of California. Seems like Iowa's a done deal. And Zach Lon is on the verge of an upset if he hasn't already upset Randy Feenstra. Justin Murphy, who entered the betting odds, a 10% favorite in New Jersey, is the apparent winner of the New Jersey Republican Senate primary. He'll be taking on Cory Booker in November, and he'll probably lose by 15 because New Jersey's New Jersey. Now, Montana Republicans basically all but got their next senator in Kurt Alme out of the state of Montana. And we'll, I guess, continue to monitor the first district result in the coming days. New Mexico, Ben Ray Lujan is the incumbent senator. He won his primary easily. Republicans didn't even run a candidate other than a write-in candidate. I don't know what the hell they're doing in New Mexico, but for governor, they seem to be putting up Greg Hall, who is the mayor of a place called Rio Rancho, South Dakota. We already covered this. It's not over, but it's clearly probably going to be a runoff between Doden and Roden, which I'm sure is going to confuse a lot of voters in the state of South Dakota. But we'll see. We'll see what happens come the runoff. Hopefully, I guess Doden would be the preferred candidate there, but we'll see. So, anyways, guys, that'll be the last call for Super Chats. If you have anything you want to send in via Super Chat, I would highly recommend that you guys send it in now. So we don't forget it. We don't miss it by the time that we wrap up this stream and it just barely comes in. So let's see what, if anything, you guys have. If not, we can read the regular chat as well. There's plenty of chats in there too. So Iowa's at 99%. It's correct. 600,000 mail-in ballots will pop up over. Well, yeah, I mean, probably more than that, but it doesn't mean that they're all fabricated, although some of them probably are taken by people who should not have access to them and then mailed in. If we're going to be honest, California's election system is a complete and total joke. So that's never going to be reformed if we can't win, which you can beat the election system. It's not impossible. Republicans have done better in California recently since it's been implemented. So it's not the only thing that's holding them back. But there's a reason why Newsom's not a moron. You know, Newsom knows that when you mail everybody a ballot and people constantly complain that they're getting ballots that don't belong to them, that when you have such a high illegal alien population that you coddle, that they're going to get their hands on those ballots and fill them out and send them in. It may only be 30,000 of them, but that's going to pad your total. That's, 1%, maybe not 1% in California, but, I guess with California's population, let's even just go 100,000. That's 1%. So it is harder, for sure. But they do that because they get to tout statistics about democracy. And then when it comes down to how it unfolds and how the votes are counted, it takes a slower time than a third world dictatorship would typically take. So Joshua Zeeksel for 2 says, what are the odds that Hilton and Bianco both win? 0. I'll just say it, 0. He's in 4th. There's virtually no way he's going to catch up to 2nd. Riverside County's his strongest, and it's half in, and Bianco is probably not even going to win it when all the votes are counted. Now, he's up in another county for some reason. I don't know why, but I don't know if he'll even stay up there as the rest of the votes will be tabulated. So we'll see who the top 2 end up being, but I'm 99% sure it's going to be Hilton, Becerra. The real question is who comes in 5th. Is it going to be Katie Porter and her crazy self? Or is it going to be this Matt Mahan guy who's basically ran his entire campaign on I don't like Trump? Turns out that's not going to be good enough to even win over a lot of Democrat voters in a primary if in a statewide race for governor of California. So there's that. Someone says thoughts on Thomas Massie. You can watch the previous stream we did for Thomas Massie's election, even though it was after he already lost. But, he has a lot of very, very dedicated supporters. And a lot of them are just very, very fragile when it comes down to him. And these are the same people that say, if you support Trump, you're in a cult. And then they'll just completely plug their ears and start screaming if there's any sort of criticism, no matter how legitimate, that gets dedicated at Thomas Massie. Because as far as I'm concerned, he votes with Trump the least amount of any Republican, regardless of whatever reasons he claims. So for Trump to endorse against him is pretty clear why he would do that. And it makes sense to do it. And that's why he lost to someone who hopefully is going to vote with Trump a much higher clip than 70-some%, much of which is remedial, none of which were the votes come crunch time. That's the thing. And for Thomas Massie to flirt with far-left lunatics and egg on far-left conspiracies about Trump and Epstein and making that controversy far worse for Trump than it needed to be, by also grifting off of the actual victims of Epstein, claiming you have a list and not actually producing the names of the victims that you claim you're going to release, that's honestly sick to me, and it shows you don't care about anything other than being some sort of diva. And this is a guy who apparently has prided himself on just putting his head down and doing his work, when in reality he really hasn't accomplished anything at all except almost sabotaging Trump's entire presidency. And then I'm supposed to support him because why? Because he doesn't support foreign aid to Israel or something? Like, I would rather get the aid to the border if it means I have to spend whatever aid we've been spending overseas. Doesn't mean we can't have a conversation about that either, but that's not really an excuse to say, oh, well, Massie is like somebody you have to support, when you have to look at the other things that he might claim he's doing for based reasons, but in reality has the same impact, has the same effect. So I don't have to lend my support to him. I don't owe him anything. So that's the way it is. Deborah for £5 says, it's interesting how you're openly Republican, but a lot of your analysis is fairly neutral, whereas many centrist analysis are, well, that's because they don't have integrity. Now, if they can call themselves centrist, I can say I'm a moderate Republican. And we should probably try to take the mantle away from every other side by saying that whatever you want to say, MAGA or the America First Republican vision is the moderate vision, because it is. There's nothing that isn't common sense about it. You could say it's conservative, but the core issues that we tend to focus on are not even like the social issues. Like, that can be done at the state level. I think for the federal level, that's like immigration. That's going to determine the future of the country. And saying maybe we shouldn't keep radically transforming the country, that should be considered a fairly moderate position. There's nothing radical about it, because it's common sense in the totality of the entire world, aside from Western Europe and Canada and the United States, that says you have to take in the entire third world at your doorstep. And we never voted for it. We were lied to about it. And even if you want to make the case that it wasn't the Hart-Celler Act so much as it was the Immigration Act of 1990, people didn't vote for that either. So, again, I think my positions are fairly moderate and standard. I support people that want to win. I guess that makes me radical, the way that so-called moderates on the left are people that do things that make them want to win. So, oh well. But let's see. Walk Talk 2170 for 10 says, I find it funny how Dems claim to support illegals, but generations ago they backed the Chinese exclusion and support the McKinley and Roosevelt Spanish-American wars. Well, when it comes down to it, I'm not going to litigate politics from over 100 years ago. Of course, Democrats have changed. They weren't around back then. They probably would want to import the entire continent of Asia if they were, or they would just be laughed out of the political arena because there was no market for that. Eisenhower, he was a moderate, but he was very tough on illegal immigration. He deported several million illegal aliens in the 1950s, and he was relatively popular because it was a popular thing to do. So American Nerd 76 is, why can't California count fast? I don't know. You'd have to ask them. I'm not Gavin Newsom. I have been asking the same question for the past 10 years almost. So it's just the system that they have. So everybody gets a ballot. Some people get multiple. Maybe you get a few ballots in hands of people who are not legally allowed to use them, and boom, there you go. That's not why California is so blue. Liberals exist, but it definitely pads their margins. If you had a legitimate system, I guarantee you the results would be a little bit different. Maybe not totally, but I think there'd be a few House seats that Republicans would be able to win that they otherwise may not have been able to. So the California is a joke. I mean, the homeless problem, the illegal problem, the fact that the government raises taxes to the rates they do to coddle illegals problem, give homeless people drugs. Like, this is how they operate. And then they expect to not have the state zoom to the left. Like, I don't understand how they wouldn't kind of see the writing on the wall there. Beats me. So, all right, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up. California is going to be counting for days on end. I don't think that it's going to be worth to stay on stream for a month just so we can watch the results trickle up to 99%. So I will wrap it up. But again, before we go, like the stream, subscribe, hit that bell. I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle out.